time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him.
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Another war. I can't wait to hear what this one's for. I can't wait to find out what will win. Bring evil to an end. Settle up the score. Another war. I can't wait to send our young and poor with promises of lower interest loans, manufactured homes. Ain't that worth killing for? And all them little people of the world, can't you hear them screaming out to sea? Promises of sweet democracy, raining down like bullets and debris.
Hello, dissidents. Welcome, one and all, to a Sunday evening edition of the Do Dissidents podcast. Keaton Weiss here with Russell Dobular, of course.
Hello. And that
Hello.
was little Kersey Blanton with her song War, going up the charts like a bullet.
There you go. What's her name?
Kersey Blanton. She is awesome. She dropped that right when this happened, so you can check her out. She's on Facebook, she's on Instagram, she's on YouTube, and she's on tour right now. I think her tour is out on the West Coast. She just wrapped up her East Coast leg.
Nice. Excellent. Good to see someone giving, what's the other guy? Jesse Wells, run for his money as the politically relevant folk singer. So yeah, that was good. Good voice, good music. Check that out. Check that out on all of your socials. They
should really jam. Her and Jesse Wells.
Yeah, there you go. I like that idea.
That would be a good lineup. Get Jesse Jet. Get our friend Jesse Jet out there.
There you go. A little Traveling Wilburys super group going there.
Yeah.
So what do we miss, everybody? It's been a long couple days. Anything happen in the world? Anything?
We're covering restaurant openings tonight.
Yeah.
There's been some fabulous new Italian places opening in Flatbush.
How's that Make America Great Again thingy going? How's that America First thing going? What's the word on that? Any news on that front over these past few days?
Well, Keaton, I did my part to try to make my city great again.
That's right. Trying to make New York great again. I went out and I did the thing. There's a couple of guys volunteering on the corner by the precinct there. Now, listen, man, we're not encouraging people to go and get involved in Democratic primary. You know how that's likely to go. If you happen to live in New York, yeah, man, I mean, you could go rank the guy who, in this town, to maintain a one-state solution position, whatever kind of suspicion you might have about the Democratic Party or this candidate, and they're valid, and I share them. Come on, man. He's running against Andrew freaking Cuomo, the rapist grandma killer, Andrew Cuomo. Actually, when I got there, there was a line
and I thought it was for the voting place. I was like, wow, man, there's a line for early voting on Saturday. Turned out they were giving out like free food. That was for,
right.
the pantry thing. And so I asked, I was like, is this for the voting? They were like, no, across the street. And Latina lady, older lady, she goes, Cuomo. I go, nah, I don't vote for rapist grandma killers. But she didn't understand. She goes, no, Republicano, no. I was like, yeah, Cuomo molesto, he perverto. Yeah. I'm sure there's no such word in Spanish, but, I didn't get to the part in Rosetta Stone where they teach you the word for sex pest.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, he's also, he's running against Netanyahu's lawyer, too. That's the other thing.
So
so it's a pretty
if you
big
happen
contrast.
to be here, I'm not saying give money or go volunteer. That's up to you. I wouldn't. But, yeah, I live here. Sure.
Yeah. Indeed. Well, folks, we got a lot to get to tonight. Great crowd in here to start things off. 1,700 strong in the YouTube chat. 918 over on Rumble. So please, yes, smash that like button. And let's get an even bigger crowd in here. 330 likes over on YouTube. Let's see if we can get up to 666 by the end of the first segment. That'll be quite something, won't it? All right. Oh, there we go.
Yes, it will.
Something. There we go. Okay, that's better. All righty. All right, folks, we are going to jump right in. Let's start out with a little game, folks. Let's play a little game of Name That City. Name this great American city that had the billboards plastered with "Thank you, Mr. President." What great American city might this be? Register your guesses in the chat right now. You have 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Tel Aviv is the winner. The great American city of Tel Aviv has "Thank you, Mr. President" with Donald Trump on the
they
billboards.
have those at the airport, too.
Yeah. "Thank you, Mr. President." Tel Aviv. A lot of you didn't know Tel Aviv was an American city, but you are apparently wrong. That is in response to the events of
really,
the evening before.
America is really an Israeli city.
That's right. Donald Trump says, "We have completed our very successful attack on the 3 nuclear sites in Iran, including Fordow, Natanz, and Esfahan. All planes are now outside of Iran airspace. A full payload of bombs," big quotes, "was dropped on the primary site, Fordow. All planes are safely on their way home. Congratulations to our great American warriors. There is not another military in the world that could have done this. Now is the time for peace," he says, after we just bombed Iran. That's right. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Of course, the United States enters Israel's war against Iran. As the Axios headline goes, the U.S. military conducted airstrikes on Iran's nuclear facilities in Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan, on Sunday morning local time. The big picture: in a historic address from the White House, President Trump called the operation a spectacular military success and claimed Iran's key uranium enrichment sites have been completely and totally obliterated. Let's watch this footage from the White House where he gave his address. This is the address in its entirety, folks. Only 3.5 minutes. That's right. That's all we were worth. 3.5 minutes for the start of World War III. Really putting the effort in. Really America first. Shows you how much he values us. 3.5 minute speech to announce the start of World War III.
U.S. military carried out, a time ago, the U.S. military carried out massive precision strikes on the 3 key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime: Fordow, Natanz, and Esfahan. Everybody heard those names for years as they built this horribly destructive...
I just heard of them a few days ago, but everybody's known about those names for years. Natanz, Fordow, and Esfahan.
...enterprise. Our objective was the destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and a stop to the nuclear threat posed by the world's #1 state sponsor of terror. Tonight, I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier. For 40 years, Iran has been saying death to America, death to Israel. They have been killing our people, blowing off their arms, blowing off their legs with roadside bombs. That was their specialty. We lost over 1,000 people, and hundreds of thousands throughout the Middle East and around the world have died as a direct result of their hate. In particular, so many were killed by their general, Qasem Soleimani.
Now, Qasem Soleimani was fighting ISIS and Al-Qaeda, which are two terrorist organizations that have actually attacked Americans on American soil. That might be relevant to add to the conversation, but you won't hear that here.
They have killed many American soldiers who were fighting to keep the Middle East American.
Well, that's the other thing. That was in Iraq. And also, I mean, Rubio gets into this. They're talking about an embassy bombing that happened in 1983. And they're invoking emergency powers to bomb them now, based partly on that, literally 42 years ago.
I decided a long time ago that I would not let this happen. It will not continue. I want to thank and congratulate Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu. We worked as a team like perhaps no team has ever worked before. And we've gone a long way to erasing this horrible threat to Israel. I want to thank the Israeli military for...
We've gone a long way to eliminating this horrible threat to Israel, not to America, to Israel.
Bibi Netanyahu. We worked as a team like perhaps no team has ever worked before. And we've gone a long way to erasing this horrible threat to Israel. I want to thank the Israeli military for the wonderful job they've done. And most importantly, I want to congratulate the great American patriots who flew those magnificent machines tonight, and all of the United States military on an operation the likes of which the world has not seen in many, many decades. Hopefully, we will no longer need their services in this capacity. I hope that's so. I also want to congratulate the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Raisin Kane, spectacular general, and all of the brilliant military minds involved in this attack. With all of that being said, this cannot continue. There will be either peace or there will be tragedy for Iran far greater than we have witnessed over the last 8 days. Remember, there are many targets left. Tonight's was the most difficult of them all, by far, and perhaps the most lethal. But if peace does not come quickly, we will go after those other targets with precision, speed, and skill. Most of them can be taken out in a matter of minutes. There's no military in the world that could have done what we did tonight, not even close. There has never been a military that could do what took place just a little while ago. Tomorrow, General Kane, Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth will have a press conference at 8 a.m. at the Pentagon. And I want to just thank everybody, and in particular, God. I want to just say we love you, God, and we
I love that. I want to thank everyone, in particular, God. We love you, God, especially God. I want to thank everyone, but especially God.
In particular, God. I want to just say we love you, God, and we love our great military. Protect them. God bless the Middle East. God bless Israel, and God bless America. Thank you very much. Thank you.
And that's it, folks. Thank you very much. God bless Israel. God bless Israel, and then God bless America. So that would be America second. In fact, America third, right?
God bless the Middle East.
First.
God bless Israel, and God bless America. Thank you very much. Thank you.
America third. That's what you all voted for, right? God bless Israel, says Donald Trump. We've eliminated this great threat to Israel. Why it matters. Trump's decision to intervene directly in support of Israel's effort to dismantle Iran's nuclear program marks a historic escalation in the Middle East. Yes, I'd say. It's an intervention fraught with risks and uncertainty, one that Trump and many of his predecessors had sought to avoid, including through diplomacy with Iran. The attack, which came on the 9th night of the unprecedented war between Israel and Iran, could provoke retaliation from Tehran against U.S. troops and military installations across the region. Trump posted on Truth Social, any retaliation by Iran against the United States of America will be met with force far greater than what was witnessed tonight. And there, yes, is the screenshot of that tweet. That was at 10:35 p.m. So just after he got off of the podium there, that speech was given at 10 p.m. Eastern time. So now let's hear from the actual president of the United States, Benjamin Netanyahu. He gave an even shorter statement. Let's hear what this was.
President Trump, your bold decision to target Iran's nuclear facilities with the awesome and righteous might of the United States will change history. In Operation Rising Lion, Israel has done truly amazing things. But in tonight's action against Iran's nuclear facilities, America has been truly unsurpassed. It has done what no other country on earth could do. History will record that President Trump acted to deny the world's most dangerous regime the world's most dangerous weapons. His leadership today has created a pivot of history that can help lead the Middle East and beyond to a future of prosperity and peace. President Trump and I often say, peace through strength. First comes strength, then comes peace. And tonight, President Trump and the United States acted with a lot of strength.
They don't really seem to understand the peace part. You know, they seem to misunderstand peace through strength, right? Peace through strength is you develop strength through soft power. You know, bombing people and then calling for peace, that's not peace through strength. That's not peace at all.
President Trump, I thank you. The people of Israel thank you. The forces of civilization thank you. God bless America. God bless Israel. And may God bless our unshakable alliance, our unbreakable faith.
So there you go. So he mentioned America. He said, God bless America first. Trump said, God bless Israel first. So I guess it all comes out in the wash, right? All works out in the end. Comes out even, as they say. So Michael Tracy says, everybody cut the bullshit for once. Trump wasn't dragged into this war. He and Netanyahu knowingly manufactured it through the fake negotiations of his fake diplomat Witkoff, engineered to give Israel the pretext for launching the war, which he officially joined 9 days later. That's right. And James Lee says, ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States. That's right. Well done, James. Primo Radical says, Putin didn't tell Trump to bomb Iran. Netanyahu did. Democrats spent the last decade looking for foreign collusion when it was staring them right in the face the entire time. Yes, but there could never be an Israel Gate investigation because it would implicate every politician in D.C. That's absolutely right. And just a breaking update to this story, in case there was any doubt about the plans of President Netanyahu and Trump. This just came across the wire at 4:55 p.m. tonight, just a couple hours ago. It's not politically correct to use the term regime change, but if the current Iranian regime is unable to make Iran great again, why wouldn't there be a regime change? MAGA, M-I-G-A, for Make Iran Great Again. Yes, tweeting the MAGA acronym or whatever you call it, unironically. So there you have it, folks. Full-throated support for another regime change war. This, once again, the biggest scam in political history, certainly in the modern era, without a doubt. Absolutely no doubt about it. And the only serious position right now is to support the impeachment and removal of Donald Trump. I know there are people who will say, what difference does that make? Well, the difference it makes is you need to put every politician in Washington on notice. They will not be reelected if they support this war, and they will not be reelected unless they support the impeachment and removal of Donald Trump. And we have to work to remove every politician from office who supports this war and does not support the impeachment and removal of Donald Trump, as we're going to get into in the next piece, or two pieces from now. There was a war powers resolution that was going to be brought to the floor of the House and the Senate. Obviously, Trump jumped the gun on that And the potential justification for doing so would have been that this is an emergency. This is far from an emergency. Even if you take all of their bullshit at face value, it was still far from an emergency. Marco Rubio saying they have 60% enrichment, which means they're well on their way to being able to make a bomb. That in no way constitutes an emergency that would be necessary to usurp the power of Congress. A blatantly unconstitutional act for which impeachment is the appropriate consequence. It is cut and dry. It is as simple as that. There's no excusing it. There's no explaining it. There's no rationalizing it. And there's no arguing, well, what good would that actually do? That's beside the point. The point is, this is an impeachable offense, a grave offense against the entire world. And if you do not support impeachment over this, you are not a serious person.
Yeah, if you look at the Make Iran Great Again thing, this is what they default to, and you'll see it again in my MAGA reactions piece. If you look at how heavily they lean on the culture war to try to maintain cohesion with their base and to try to sell all of these actions to their base that the base emphatically said they do not want, it really reinforces Michael Parenti's ideas. A lot of other people have said, hey, all of this political correctness, it was all an op to make the perceived left so loathsome and disgusting that you could push this right-wing agenda by labeling anything as being anti that. Now, I think they've used up that card pretty quickly. I think they're very rapidly getting to the absurd place with the way they're invoking that. Case in point, it's not politically correct to say regime change. Yeah, that's really, I don't think that term means what you think it means. There's nothing, it doesn't really fall in that realm. But they're going to use that in the hopes, and, not misplaced hope, that some of their base, that'll hit their reptile brain. That's what all of that is for. That's all neurolinguistic programming. You just say, yeah, it's politically correct. Yeah, God damn it, politically correct, right? Like that's meant to hit, and it will hit some people like that. It's just when in a month, or maybe even in a couple weeks, they're paying $7, $8 for gas. They don't care so much about the transes in the bathroom when they literally can't heat the house this winter. So they've overplayed that hand, but it shows you very clearly what the purpose of that was, in my opinion. Like, that was exactly so that you would usher in a regime like this that could use that as a cudgel to force through that kind of an agenda.
Yeah, and, that might explain some of that phrasing there. But it is just incredible to see now, every day is going to get harder and harder to see how MAGA world tries to spin this. I mean, now you're talking about a regime change war. Sagarin Jetty tweeted, he quoted that Trump truth, or whatever you call it. And he said, Hegseth and Vance were on the morning shows today talking about how regime change was not the goal. And, I noticed some of that. We have a piece coming up later in the live stream about the sort of Sunday morning talk show response to this. And I saw some of those pieces. I didn't even think to include them because, to be honest with you, it really doesn't matter what someone like a Rubio or a Vance or a Hegseth say their goal is vis-a-vis Iran once it gets started. Because Donald Trump, you just saw that first truth that he fired off, now is the time for peace. In other words, the party line out of all this is going to be, well, we just hit your nuclear sites as a preventative measure because you were on your way to developing a bomb. We didn't hit any people. We don't want a war. We don't want regime change. We just want to hit your nuclear sites and call it a day, and now we have peace. All of that goes out the window if and when Iran retaliates, which they are, of course, very likely to. So therefore, it really doesn't matter whether you say right now you want regime change or don't want regime change, right, because once Iran retaliates, then we hit back. At that point, we're off to the races and all bets are off. So it really didn't matter what they had to say this morning. It is significant and amazing and astounding that Donald Trump would once again jump the gun and say, you know what? Maybe regime change ought to be the goal after all. Astounding, remarkable, not surprising, though, because we know President Netanyahu wants regime change. The Israelis want regime change. This man is acting on behalf of Israel. He is an agent of Israel. He's working for Israel. And so we know that that's his goal, irrespective of what any of these talking heads said this morning on TV. The fact that he's getting out ahead of that shows he is working overtime and in advance to manufacture consent for, yes, a regime change war 5 months into a 4-year term, when a major contingent of the coalition that propelled him to office was an anti-regime change war coalition, including the absolute worthless piece of garbage, Tulsi Gabbard, who uses the term regime change war over and over again as what she is dead set against. Yep. And here we are.
Until now.
Didn't even make it 6 months.
Yep. This is what we all have to come together and acknowledge at this point. MAGA, non-MAGA, other, whatever, however you identify. We do not have a democracy in any sense of the word.
We don't even have a government.
It does not matter who you vote for. You always get, as someone put it, John McCain, no matter who you vote for. We have got to come together as a people to peacefully, within the bounds of the law, YouTube, we need to overthrow this system. This entire system is completely like the idea of getting excited about whoever at this point. We've run the experiment long enough. It's ridiculous to think you'll install anyone from any party, any political persuasion that is going to change this. You cannot change this from within this system anymore. I think that for the Bernie people, we saw that through that campaign. Most of us, I think, that the Democrats were unreformable. And I think this will probably have that impact on the more conservative-oriented populace. They're going to realize from this, you can't fix the Republican Party. If we went that far to elect somebody that we thought was fighting the deep state and that the establishment hated, and within a few months they've given them everything they ever wanted, how are you going to ever believe that electing a Republican is going to solve things again? There's an opportunity now for a conversation. I know it's very difficult, and certainly we can be very fiery in our rhetoric regarding people, but to be fair, man, it's not like we go easy on our own either. We're pretty hard on everybody. We're hard on ourselves. But in reality, man, this is a time, if there's a time to try to build a coalition and a movement, perhaps around what you're saying, impeach Donald Trump, that might be a good, easy, very clear goal to start bringing people together around.
Yes.
And then maybe we can start talking about other things we can collaborate on.
Well, yes. And the reason I think impeachment is important, both as a goal and as an organizing mechanism, is because of exactly that. I think you accomplish both a sort of long-term track goal and a short-term track goal all at once. Like, yes, long-term, obviously, both of these major parties are irredeemable. They're unreformable. We need things, like you said, peacefully and legally, labor strikes, boycotts, civil disobedience, right? Actions that will bring the system to a halt, and then we insist that it restart on our terms. All that is true. I obviously support all that. We need all that. Short term, though, we need to end this war as quickly as possible before it destroys life on Earth, which means we need to make clear to the politicians sitting in office right now that, yes, we have a long-term goal to reorient the system so that we don't get back in this spot in the future. But right now, the shit has now hit the fan, folks. This is now a dire emergency unfolding right now. We need this stopped, which means we have to make it clear to the politicians in office right now, you will lose your job if you do not support impeachment, if you do not support these war powers resolutions that we're going to talk about in a bit. Like, it is that immediate and urgent. And so I think impeachment kind of marries those two things because it creates a conversation where we could all come together. I've seen a lot of right-wingers talk about impeachment over these past few days. The libs are mostly there as a default, and, some of the politicians are going to take some petitioning, but we can get some of them. We can get, I think, a lot of them there. I think there is enough broad-based sentiment to actually organize a legitimate movement around that because far greater than 2/3 of Americans don't want war with Iran. War with Iran polled at 16%. So you need 2/3 majority to impeach. We have 2/3 majority against this very existential issue, which means there is potential for impeachment as an organizing goal, and it is an open and shut case. It's an open and shut case. This was not an immediate emergency. Marco Rubio said on television today, they're at 60%, which means they're working towards 90%, at which point they can make a bomb. So if just taking what he said at face value, and a lot of that's probably lies, according to their track record, but taking that at face value, you could have waited a week for this war powers vote. There's absolutely no justification to usurp the congressional power to do this. That, therefore, as Thomas Massie said, is unconstitutional. As AOC said, it's impeachable. So if you got AOC and Thomas Massie coming together on something, shouldn't be hard to get the rest of us on board.
Well, and in terms of the complete violation of democracy this represents, which, it's a long list of things, but I think it's 50 points Democrats are against this, and by 30 points Republicans are against it.
Right.
So
exactly.
In what sense do you have a democracy?
Mm-hmm.
And in regards to, then you would get J.D. Vance. Hey, I'm not a fan of Peter Thiel's Golden Boy, but according to a fair amount of reporting, apparently he never hooked up on Epstein Island because he's been speaking against this. So it looks like whatever materials the Mossad has on Trump and many others in our government, it looks like, hey, man, you could talk your way out of assaulting a couch. So, if that's the worst they have on him, he's all right. I'm not sure what the DSM manual calls that kind of of a fetish, but you could talk your way out of that. But yeah, I mean, according to the reporting, he was against this. So you got a moderate improvement with J.D. Vance, but regardless,
if he keeps it going, you impeach him too. Then it's President Hakeem Jeffries. If he keeps it going, you impeach him too. Just keep going.
You set a precedent.
Right.
Set a precedent. But if you don't do anything,
or Mike Johnson,
Mike Johnson, if you don't do anything to reclaim the government, you're never getting the government. We lost the government.
Exactly.
It's not like any conversation framed as we need to fight to preserve our democracy is starting from a false premise. You already lost it. The conversation is, can you get it back, and how would you do that?
Exactly. Not only do we not have a democracy, we don't even have a government. We don't have a government of any kind. The guy's up there saying we eliminated this threat to Israel. God bless Israel. He's the president of Israel and for Israel. We don't even have a government. In terms of foreign policy, this is Israel
that was some
first.
Idiocracy shit right there, man.
Yes. Yeah, it is really unbelievable.
Listen. I understand the kids they call it the brain rot, so we don't want this to be too long.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 3.5 minutes. That's it. So, folks, if you're not terrified of the potential human cost of a war with Iran, perhaps this will scare you a little bit. This is what we talk about when we talk about this just being absolutely disastrous. Iran parliament reportedly backs closing the Strait of Hormuz, which could spike oil prices. Oh, you don't say. Iran's parliament has endorsed closing the Strait of Hormuz, a vital oil transit point off its coast. But analysts are skeptical about the threat from a body without authority to close the strait. Why it matters. Impeding the strait would likely bring a massive spike in oil prices that would flow through to U.S. consumers. The narrow channel between Iran and Oman is the choke point for a quarter of the world's seaborne oil trade, around 1/5 of all oil movements. Without diplomatic concessions from Tehran, the front-month Brent crude oil price could open meaningfully above its 77.01 per barrel Friday close, Clearview Energy Partners said in a Sunday note. The threat is among the initial responses to yesterday's U.S. strikes on Iran's nuclear sites. Trying to block the strait would be the first time that the Israel-Iran conflict meaningfully affects global oil flows. Authority to do so rests with regime security officials and not with parliament. So here you could see, as a percentage of all of the oil flow, the Strait of Hormuz is the dark brown. Everything else is the beige. As the article mentions, that's about 20%, which creates quite the nightmare for just about everybody. Just about everybody. The U.S. is urging China to pressure Iran not to close the Strait of Hormuz, Marco Rubio told Fox News.
Final question here. Do you expect Iran to move to close the Strait of Hormuz to try to disrupt
I love that,
oil transportation across the world?
Well, I encourage the Chinese government in Beijing to call them about that because they heavily depend on the Straits of Hormuz for their oil. If they do that, it'll be another terrible mistake. It's economic suicide for them if they do it. And we retain options to deal with that. But other countries should be looking at that as well. It would hurt other countries' economies a lot worse than ours. It would be, I think, a massive escalation that would merit a response, not just by us, but from others. So, look, they're going to say what they need to say. You know, these are the things that need to happen for their own internal politics and so forth. But in the end, we're going to judge them by the actions that they take moving forward. We had 3 objectives. We struck those 3 objectives with decisive force. And that was the point of this mission. And that's what we achieved. What happens next will depend on what they do. They want to negotiate. We're ready to negotiate. They want to get cute and do things that are dangerous. We have responses available that are devastating.
Secretary, was China complicit? We know that jets flew into Iran. We don't know what were on those jets.
No, we don't have any evidence that the Chinese were involved in it.
All right. So let's hear a little bit more about what the implications of the closure of the Strait of Hormuz would be. Hotspot found this video. I'm not sure who this woman is, but this seems like a good explanation. You know, she's a good-looking woman, you know, so it doesn't really matter who she is. If you have those looks, you could explain the Strait of Hormuz, and people are like, hey, I'm straight for this Hormuz. I can tell you that. So here we go. Let's hear more about the Strait of Hormuz.
I'm going to feel that in the morning. That was rough.
Hormuz is one of the most geopolitically charged waterways on the planet. Empires fought for it, now global markets depend on it. And at its narrowest point, it's only about 20 to 30 miles wide. Yet, 1/5 of the world's global oil supply flows through it daily. As you can see, there's Iran to the north, and there's the Musandam Peninsula to the south, which is a little exclave of Oman. It's quite tiny here on the map, but you have beady eyes, I've noticed, that juts out from UAE territory. So this narrow throat is the only maritime exit from the Persian Gulf, meaning that there's no other sea route for the vast energy exports of Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Iraq, the UAE, Qatar, Bahrain. So it connects the Persian Gulf to the Gulf of Oman, to the Arabian Sea, and then if the whiteboard was massive, the Indian Ocean. So it's linking Asia, the Middle East, and the global economy.
She's not making this easy.
As you might guess, this strait has been contested for millennia by the early Alamites of ancient Iran, the first Persian Empire under Cyrus the Great, Portuguese naval powers, the Ottomans, the Safavids. They all were seeking to control this vital trade artery between East and West. And today, Iran holds tactical control of this northern coast. And just days
Iran controls the narrow throat of the Strait of Hormuz. That's what everybody needs to understand.
ago, a senior Iranian commander warned that Tehran was considering closing the strait in response to Israeli strikes. Iran correctly sees Hormuz as ultimate strategic leverage, not to strike Israel directly, but to pressure the global order. So if cornered by Israeli action or Western backing, it can threaten a blockade which would cripple oil markets and punish Israel's allies. So it would force the US, Europe, and the Gulf states to make a choice: pressure Israel to back down, escalate militarily, or absorb the economic pain.
So what she's saying is basically Iran's going to make it very hard to shoot the oil through the narrow throat of the Strait of Hormuz. That's what we all have to understand there. And in all seriousness, yeah, this is what we talk about. We talk about how this is going to be much worse than Iraq.
They have done some exercises that help to loosen the throat, though.
You can open the throat of Hormuz. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, look, I mean, this is part of what we talk about. We talk about how Iran is going to be much worse. If you thought Iraq was bad, and it was a horror, this is going to be much worse. Not only is it 4 times the population, but just look at what an action like this could potentially wreak. Look at the havoc that this could sow throughout the world. Oil prices skyrocketing, inflation skyrocketing, scarcity, all kinds of interruptions, massive interruptions. You talk about 20% of the seabound oil. That's huge. That's huge. And Marco Rubio, well, we're going to see, hopefully China doesn't back this. I mean, look at the gamble you're taking. For what? For what? Actually, for what is the wrong question. It's for who? It's for Israel. Right. Look at what we're putting ourselves through for Israel. Look at what the consequence of this could be. This is before you put a boot on the ground. Before there's a single casualty. Look at what you have here.
Well, and now it's to the point that even if you take the mask off and you acknowledge the real politic motivation for sustaining this genocidal apartheid state in the middle of that region, that it's really about having a way to attack all of these oil-producing nations at will. The idea that we're deeply offended by Iran's treatment of women when we just did a massive arms sale to Saudi Arabia is a little rich. So even if you just get into the real politic of it, at this point, that doesn't even make sense anymore. You are so completely destabilizing the region to maintain this client state in that region that it's hard to imagine that you wouldn't be strategically better off getting that thorn out of the side of that region and maintaining peaceful relations with the nations there. Like, how would that not be strategically better than trying to force this genocidal apartheid state on the region and on the world? Turkey is a NATO member. You have theoretically a place where you could strike from militarily as needed. Why do you need Israel? How does this still make strategic sense?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could say they could be a potential aircraft carrier, but this is where the Clash of Civilizations narrative comes in. This is where
we just sent these bombers from Kansas City.
Yep, all the way over
and back. So you don't even need it.
Yeah.
You don't even need. If you can do that, you can bomb from anywhere in Europe. You got bases all over Europe. What do you need Israel for?
That's a good point. They made a big point of saying that these bombers left from Missouri. They didn't even take a fuel stop, nothing. It just direct flight.
And they went back.
And they made it out and they went back.
So why do you need a base there? Why do you need an entire country that is a de facto, as RFK said, aircraft carrier in the region? If you can do that, why do you need Israel?
Well,
in what way is it worth destabilizing the region that way?
Well, that's where this comes in, right? Because
if
they're not necessary, then they'll make themselves necessary, if you know what I mean, right?
Yep.
Absolutely. All right. Michael Castillo got in some super chats before the show. Thanks, Michael. Good evening, gentlemen. I believe DJT will be the most corrupt president in recent years. Russell, I'm with your original theory. Those 2 assassination attempts got his mind right. Well, no, Russell's theory is that those assassination attempts were Fugazi, and that his mind was already right, and that they needed to grease the skids to get him in. Michael, also for $100, let's get that sound drop for Michael in a Cowbell for Michael. Got a great crowd in here. What a crowd here. 3,800 strong in the YouTube chat, 1,500 strong over on Rumble. In the year 2525. And we're at 1,012 likes. Easy. All right, Michael, for $100. Mad Max has said on Judge's show that he believes that Donald Trump is scared for his life. He's taken over $600 million from the Adelsons, who have deep ties to Bibi Netanyahu and his itch of a wife, Sarah. Bibi files are fire. Yeah, we got to watch that documentary.
Yeah.
You guys are always killing it. Free Palestine. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate that.
Who the hell are you? Are you Jesus Christ, you loser?
Thanks very much, Michael. Appreciate that. And yeah, I saw an interview that Max gave to, I think it was the Community Church of Boston, where he was saying a lot of what I've been saying. I almost messaged him about it because it was really a lot of what we've been saying. And one of the things that I have observed that he shared on there was that Trump's heart doesn't seem in this. He seems to be very mechanically repeating they cannot have a nuclear weapon.
Yeah.
Iran cannot. So yeah, I do think. I mean, I don't think. I mean, it's obvious that he is being led around by Israel.
Sure.
For exactly the reason we can't prove that, but it's plainly obvious that this guy who campaigned against regime change wars twice, 5 months in, is dragging us into war with Iran. No, he's being led around. He's being led around. There's no doubt about it.
Very unfair. Jeffrey told me she was 18.
Yeah,
how was I to know? Who checks
I to
ID?
know?
How was I to know?
Yeah, it really kills the mood to have to ask for ID.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. A lot of times they get insulted if you do that.
They get insulted, yes. Gopnik Otaku says, all I could think about is this is happening on June 22nd. I think Russ knows what I'm talking about. I'm also a huge World War II buff. God have mercy on us. Well, that was the day of the German invasion of the East, wasn't it? Didn't the Germans invade the Soviets on June 22nd? I don't know. We'll have to ask Daryl Cooper on that. We'll have to ask.
Yeah,
we'll have to ask Daryl. I think that's
him.
the day.
I heard he read over 200 books.
Yes, we'll have to consult with the expert, but I think that's what you're talking about. Yeah,
most of them published under the Stormfront imprint.
Exactly. Xander Vorkov, thanks for the $10. Guys, Trump is actually playing 5D chess with Iran. He's going to replace war bonds with Trump coin, then rug pull everyone with a peace deal. No need to be a panic and trust the plan. Good one. Thank you, Xander. Appreciate that.
Later in the show, we've got some epic Cope essentially making that argument almost.
Javier says, since it's Pride Month, I wonder if Iran will rename it to Gay of Hormuz. Good one. Good one. It's the only joke worse than mine so far. See, Russell's going to remember mine less because of that.
Yeah. You're helping a brother out there.
Yes. The ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passion and intensity. WPOPR slouches towards tic-tac-toe. How about a nice game of chess? Eric Rousseau, best place to survive World War III. Thinking about that.
All right, so you young kids, you weren't around for the Cold War, but we used to talk about this quite a lot. Back in those days, the general consensus was New Zealand. Something about the wind currents. It would get the least fallout in a nuclear exchange.
Interesting. It's a beautiful place. So that's an idea. Victor Shakopoulos, they're attacking Iran. They're attacking Iran. They're attacking Iran. They're attacking Iran. It feels wrong saying it out loud. Propaganda is working overtime. Oh, my God. Yes, indeed. Noah Goop, thanks for the $1. Operation Little St. James. Thank you. Eric Rousseau says, right-wing YouTube is warning about Iranian sleeper cells waiting to be activated by the Ayatollah. The Trumpers are primed for a false flag and go die for Israel. Well, that's also their way of shoehorning this to blame it on open borders, right? Everything also is supposed to come back to the border.
Culture.
Right? Yep, all culture. Noah Goop says, get your Patriot Trump gas mask today based off a product made in America. Thank you. Kenman says, message to Tulsi Sim. She's obviously a fraud. Give it up already. Also physically very mid in appearance. Eric Rousseau, has anyone trademarked Death to America yet? Sounds like some money-making merchandise. Noah Goop, God bless the Shah, God bless Israel, God bless you know who, you know the thing. That's right. Thank you, Noah Goop. All right, why don't we move right on along? All right, what are you talking about? War powers. War powers.
Okay, so you might have heard our illustrious president truthed out to everybody's, or really nobody's surprise who read Seymour Hersh, that he had ordered bombing of Iran. Now, very quickly, the usual suspects lined up behind him. Here's John Thune, the Republican leader in the Senate. The regime in Iran, which has committed itself to bringing death to America and wiping Israel off the map, has rejected all diplomatic pathways to peace, except, the meeting they were supposed to have that weekend before you bomb them.
Right, exactly.
The mullah's misguided pursuit of nuclear weapons must be stopped. As we take action tonight to ensure a nuclear weapon remains out of reach for Iran, I stand with President Trump and pray for the American troops and personnel in harm's way. Speaker Mike Johnson. The military operations in Iran should serve as a clear reminder to our adversaries and allies that President Trump means what he says. The president gave Iran's leader every opportunity to make a deal, except, meeting for the scheduled negotiations over the weekend. But Iran refused to commit to a nuclear disarmament agreement. No, they refused to commit to not having their own civilian nuclear energy program and depending on outside, likely hostile powers to provide their nuclear fuel. President Trump has been consistent and clear that a nuclear-armed Iran will not be tolerated. That posture has now been enforced with strength, precision, and clarity. The president's decisive action prevents the world's largest state sponsor of terrorism, that would be us, I think, which chants death to America, from obtaining, they're really fixated on that, and they want you to be too, from obtaining the most lethal weapon on the planet. This is America First policy in action. Wow. God bless our brave men and women in uniform, the most lethal fighting force on the planet, as we pray for their safe return home. May God bless America. Hey, Keaton, I forget. What's the only country on earth ever to bomb a civilian population with a nuclear weapon?
That would be the United States of America.
Oh, well, maybe we're a threat to the peace and safety of other people, maybe. So Thomas Massie actually responded to Speaker Johnson. Why didn't you call us back from vacation to vote on military action if there was a serious threat to our country? That seems like a reasonable question that's going to go without an answer.
That's the other thing. Yeah, they're on vacation.
Yeah. And Massie continues. I introduced a war powers resolution on Tuesday while Congress was on vacation. We would have had plenty of time to debate and vote on this. And he responded to the big guy, the new big guy. This is not constitutional. There's fighting words in that town. Constitution? We don't need no stinking constitution. Ro Khanna. Trump struck Iran without any authorization of Congress. We need to immediately return to D.C. and vote on Thomas Massie and my war powers resolution to prevent America from being dragged into another endless Middle East war. So, as you probably know, Ro Khanna and Massie have co-sponsored a War Powers Act to reclaim the power that Congress is supposed to have to declare war. And surprising everyone, Tim Kaine has been one of the most outspoken Democrats for the War Powers Bill.
Calling this the white bread rebellion.
Yeah, well, not Ro Khanna.
That's true, but Massie and Tim Kaine. That's some Wonder Bread shit there.
I mean, so's the whole government.
Right.
The American public is overwhelmingly opposed to the U.S. waging war on Iran. And the Israeli foreign minister admitted yesterday that Israeli bombing had set the Iranian nuclear program back at least 2 or 3 years. So what made Trump recklessly decide to Russian bomb today? Horrible judgment. I will push for all senators to vote on whether they are for this third idiotic Middle East war. Hey, man, when you're right, you're right. So Thomas Massie had a joint appearance today with Ro Khanna on Face the Nation. And Massie said some stuff about AIPAC that I got to say, it does represent a change in what you could say on corporate media, that he only got very mild pushback on pointing out that AIPAC made this decision. I think if you had said that a year ago, the anchor would have felt a need to do an obligatory meltdown. Like, you know, she questioned it, but not very strongly. All right, so let's take a look.
Iraq War, the second Iraq War, and the war in Afghanistan, Congress first got the briefings. Congress met and debated. It should have been declarations of war, but at least they did an authorization of use of military force. We haven't had that. This has been turned upside down, this process.
Well, you heard from Mitch McConnell, the former Republican leader, the senator, say it was a bad week for the isolationists. He was talking about Tucker Carlson and he was talking about Steve Bannon. Do you think that the president is making a choice here, or is he trying to have it both ways? Both saying, I'm going to please the hawks of the party by bombing, but then I'm going to say I want a peace deal and make the isolationists happy by saying, you know, I'm not committing to anything more than one and done.
Well, I'll concede this. It was a good week for the neocons and the military-industrial complex who want war all the time. I wouldn't call my side of the MAGA base isolationists. We are exhausted. We are tired from all of these wars, and we're non-interventionists. I mean, this was one of the promises. I mean, are you going to call President Trump's campaign an isolationist campaign? What he promised us was we would put America first. And I think there are still voices in this administration. You've still got J.D. Vance. You've still got Tulsi Gabbard.
Shut up already.
RFK Jr. You still got calmer heads that could prevail.
They were not persuasive in this case, clearly.
Well, somebody was persuasive. AIPAC is very persuasive, for instance, the Israeli law.
Right, and RFK and Tulsi were supposed to be the counterweight to that. So I don't know what you're giving them a credit for, but sorry, I stepped on that. Yes, AIPAC.
And RFK's first declaration was that anti-Semitism was a public health crisis,
right?
Which is probably not what Maha was imagining when they stood behind him.
Right, exactly.
Well, somebody was persuasive. AIPAC is very persuasive. For instance, the Israeli lobby in Congress. If you look at my colleagues' feeds now, they all look the same. They're all tweeting the same message that we've got to support Israel and we've got to do this. My question is, does 3 bombings and we're done with Iran's nuclear ambitions? Is that the 2 weeks to slow the spread of 2025? Is this, we were told 2 weeks to slow the spread then.
They hit your lizard brain, you hit their lizard brain. Hit their lizard brain right back. Hey, remember 2 weeks to slow the spread? That's good. That's some good jujitsu from the Kentucky boy.
Now we're told it's just going to take 3 bombings. But what happens when Israel gets bombed again? Is Trump going to sit by and say, no, we're not going to further engage in this war?
I tried to get answers from the secretary on that question. But when you say the pro-Israel lobby, AIPAC, do you see a difference between Israel's interests and American interests?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, look, Iran, the reality is they don't have it.
What kind of question is that? Like, what world are we living in?
Okay, but that is a very typical kind of corporate media question.
Yeah.
But you know what? She let it go.
Yeah,
she let it go. Like he answered absolutely, and she didn't do what a year ago I think she would have felt like she had to do to keep her job. Exactly. I think also the fact that this is happening under Trump changes it for the corporate media, because they don't know whether to shit or wind their wristwatch. Like, there is an institutional bias against Donald Trump.
Right.
So even though they are institutionally pro-war, pro-Israel, they're also very anti-Trump.
Right.
And I think that's making them temper their responses to things like that.
Yeah, it gives them wiggle room on both sides of it, right? Because you have leeway to criticize Trump, so even if that bleeds over into criticizing Israel, it's not going to hurt you too much, right?
Missile that can reach the United States. They're not near to getting a missile that can reach the United States. I think this, what has happened, what has transpired this week has been planned for months. This administration, and maybe even the administration prior to that, said, you go in and soften them up, take out their air defense capabilities, and then we'll send in the big bombers.
Okay, man, that is really giving away the game. Thomas Massie is really making a uniparty deep state argument that they had the same agenda if Harris won that they have under Trump.
Sure.
He's saying they probably planned this already under Biden, that this was what they were going to do. That is pretty singular. Like, I can't think off the top of my head of anyone else in government who's actually at a high ranking level who would say something like that, which I think is probably true.
Of course. Oh, there's no question. Virtually no question. I mean, you can't technically prove a hypothetical, but there is virtually no question this would have happened had Kamala won.
Oh, yeah.
There's no doubt about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, first, let me just say that it's a totally unfair smear to call people isolationists, the vast majority of Americans who don't want more war and want diplomacy. Diplomacy and engagement is not isolationism. But look, on Israel, I have supported aid and support defensively. And even the War Powers Resolution says that if Iran is striking Israel, we can provide defense so that Israel isn't hit. What I opposed was giving Israel offensive weapons to go kill more people in Gaza. I think that war needs to end. But I think the bottom line, Margaret, is what have we achieved here? We're going to push Iran to now be like Pakistan or North Korea, go in and try to develop a nuclear bomb covertly. We have put more American troops at risk. We're going to spend more resources going and getting more entrenched in the Middle East. And we've created a generation of hate. It's like, can this country learn?
Yeah.
We keep voting for people, for president who say we're not going to get into war, and then they keep getting pushed by the Washington Beltway to get us into this mess.
Yep. I know it is hard to imagine now, but I do remember the last days of South Africa. I was young, but I was a news junkie then. And there was a lot of this leading up to acknowledging you just can't support an apartheid state.
Right.
There was a lot of this kind of like pussyfooting around it and talking about how you could reform it, and I'm for this, but maybe they could use the same swimming pools. And right, there was a lot of that before the dam broke. And finally it was just obvious, how did we ever support this? That day is going to come, and I think it's going to come sooner rather than later. The fear that I have, and I think it's being proven more and more every day, as we predicted from the beginning, anti-Semitism is not being combated by Israel's actions. It is being ignited and mainstreamed in a way that I have never seen it in my lifetime, that frankly, it probably hasn't been mainstreamed since before World War II. Like, you are bringing back anti-Semitism because you have this rogue state that is clearly reinforcing the idea of the core conspiracy at the heart of most anti-Semitism, that there's a cabal of Jews that are secretly running things. And in the case of AIPAC and this government, it's true. It's true. At that point, you have given an opening a mile wide for people who are intrinsically anti-Semitic, who believe there's, an ancient conspiracy and the protocols of the elders of Zion. You've given them a great and very fertile ground for recruiting. We have a mutual friend who's literally just wrote a screed on Facebook about how, all Jews are complicit. And as Israel loses its power, they are creating the environment that they have warned against, but they are the ones who have created it. It is a self-fulfilling prophecy. Israel is not going to be able to continue to exist under the premises that it exists today. The fallout for what Israel has done is something that all Jews are going to feel. They are going to have to deal with. Just like I always tell this story, when I first traveled around Europe, I always felt bad for the German kids in the youth hostels, because you go to a youth hostel, I was a kid myself. You go to the youth hostel, that's part of the whole vibe. Everybody's meeting up. The Japanese people are talking about what their country's like. And whenever the German kids would stop talking, I would think it's probably different now. But back then it was still recent enough that eventually people would ask them about World War II, and they would just turn bright red. And I always felt bad for these kids because they had nothing to do with it. But they had to answer for that. Every German person had to answer for that. That's what it's going to be like for Jews because of this sick, genocidal, psychopathic state that most Jews were against the creation of until after World War II. Most people thought this was a crackpot scheme, and they thought the people who supported this scheme were nutballs. And you know what? They were right.
Well, yeah. I mean, look. I mean, I'm Jewish, and I am definitely embarrassed by this. I am. I am personally embarrassed by this. I think it's a shameful chapter in the history of Judaism. Yes. And I don't hold all Jews responsible. I'm a Jewish person myself. I speak out the best I can. A lot of Jews as well are part of the pro-Palestine movement. A lot of Jews are anti-Zionist, but I mean, it is definitely a stain. I mean, there's just no question about it. I feel that way as a Jewish person myself. And so, yes, this is going to create a certain fallout. This is part of why I say, though, it's important now, especially for this reason, among others, to find organizing goals that can unite us. And I think in the short term, yes, I think impeaching this president and removing him from office is a good one, because we already have an overwhelming majority of people agree that this is a horror.
Right.
Okay. So
we're
that's
starting,
a good place to start.
Well, we can announce it now. We're going to wait. We're starting an organization called Jews for Impeachment.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Go ahead.
Just to close this out, at least 60 members of Congress have now signed on to efforts against the Trump-Vance administration's war on Iran. 59 Democrats, 1 Republican. I bet you can guess who the one is. After the attack, Democratic leader Chuck Schumer announced support for the War Powers Act and is urging all senators to vote for it. Talk about a flip-flop. But again, because this is happening under Trump, it puts them in an awkward position, because Schumer supports this action against Iran. But he just cannot, as leader of the Democrats in the Senate, back Trump's play on this. If this happened under Harris, he'd be breaking out a kazoo and celebrating. So yeah, you can see here the people who have voted for this, and then the co-sponsors in the Senate there for the Senate's version of it, all Democrats except for Sanders, independent technically. But yeah, only Thomas Massie has signed on from the House, and frankly, 59 Democrats out of 214. That's nothing to be proud of either.
Yeah,
that is how owned by AIPAC most of these people are. Even though it's Trump, most of them still will not speak out to claim their congressional authority against war with Iran.
Yeah, and this is also a good organizing goal as well. Even more short term than impeachment. Like this week, right now, call your senator, call your congressperson, and demand that they vote for this. Absolutely, this is a game changer. Like this is very much an all bets are off type of moment.
Yeah.
This is no longer like, okay, yeah, you got World War III kind of simmering in Ukraine. No, this is it. It's here right now.
Yep.
This is it. This is the moment we've been fearing for the last 20 years. It's here, and we have to stop it. Okay. Let's do some super chats here, and then we're doing the Trump versus Massie next, right?
Yep.
All right, cool. Michael Ewan says, it was awesome seeing Keaton with Kit last night on Hardlands. Yes, thanks to Hardlands for inviting me on last night. That was as fun as it could have been under the circumstances. Let's all Pokemon Go call our Congress critters and tell them war with Iran is a bad idea, for sure. Fat Not So Fat, thanks for the $4.99. I knew we were cooked when my Navy buddy told me his platoon was served lobster and steak. Yeah, we saw that video surface on X, right?
I didn't see that.
It's always a bad sign when they start feeding them their lobster and steak. That means you're about to go somewhere where you can't get that. Trump tweeted a few hours that he actually wants regime change. Yep, got that, Josh Daniel. We covered that in the last piece. David Rovik says China shill. He's also a good political folk singer. Yeah, I've heard of him too. Yeah. I think I've seen some of his stuff. David Rovics. I've seen some of his stuff. Yeah. Fat Not So Fat says Iran just voted to close Straits of Hormuz. Gas prices about to skyrocket. Thank goodness I just got a remote job. There you go. Good for you, Fat Not So Fat. Amadeus says, and you fall for it every single time. Angelus, thank you very much. Let's see here. What do we got over on the Rumble side? Russ, 1 in a billion Tulsi is your dream MILF. Post left, right, bro. So you're saying there's a chance. There you go. Tulsi, I've always been for regime change war, says Jeannie and Heidi. Thank you. Tel Aviv is to my pacifism what Ayn Rand is to my libido. John M. in Minnesota says, Hegseth says this is not about regime change. Translation, it's about regime change. Yeah, exactly. We're going to get to him in a few minutes. I asked AI, bombing Iran would almost certainly make it more likely that Iran would pursue nuclear weapons. Of course, if they come out of this standing, then yes, of course they will. Of course they will, because they're going to look to the North Korean example and say, why haven't we toppled them? They can reach us with a nuclear missile. We don't go after them. So, yeah, pretty obvious. All right. So Donald Trump did not take kindly to Thomas Massie's actions over these last few days.
No, he did not. So to recap, Trump truthed out his war announcement, his bombing announcement, not at all a regime change announcement, remember. And Thomas Massie said simply, this is not constitutional. And he also made the rounds this morning on the Sunday talk shows.
The notion that this isn't an act of war, I find ludicrous. This is a hot war. There are two nations, Israel and Iran, trading volleys of missiles every night, every day, and we're co-belligerent now in this war.
I mean, the vice president went on to say that they needed to act now because there was a narrow window, and if they waited, it could have been too late. And they needed to stop the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction.
It was an emergency.
Do you not share that concern?
No, I don't share that concern. But I have another concern, and that is that 3 bombings to neutralize Iran may turn out to be the 2025 version of 2 weeks to slow the spread. This could turn into a protracted.
He's on his talking points.
He's good. This guy's good.
This guy's good. You're good. You're good.
You.
Prolonged engagement, and I'm here to represent the base of the MAGA party that got Trump elected. Most of us were tired of the wars in the Middle East and Eastern Europe, and we were promised that we wouldn't be engaging in another one. Yet here we see this happening, and there's the president and the administration say, oh, we're done. We've had our little bombing and now this is over. But what happens if this drags on between Israel and Tel Aviv gets pummeled by Iran? Is President Trump going to say we're going to sit by and not do anything in that instance? I'm leery of this given everything that's happened before.
Very valid fear, Congressman Massey.
You pissed them off.
Pissed him off. So Donald Trump, he's not going to take that lying down.
No.
He's not going to take this congressman standing up for constitutional prerogatives of his office lying down. Congressman Thomas Massie of Kentucky is not MAGA, even though he likes to say he is. Actually, MAGA doesn't want him. Doesn't even want him. Doesn't know him. Doesn't even respect him. Yeah, come on, man. You're going to tell me this is not a gay movement. You're going to tell me there's not a gay movement. There's like a scene out of Mean Girls.
Yeah.
He is a negative force who almost always votes no matter how good something may be. He's a simple-minded grandstander who thinks it's good politics for Iran to have the highest level nuclear weapon. What? At the same time, yelling, "Death to America!" at every chance they get. Iran has killed and maimed thousands of Americans and even took over the American embassy in Tehran under the Carter administration. You know, it's funny. You're seeing like these propaganda videos coming from, you know, Iranian expats and descendants of expats who are celebrating the halcyon days of the Shah and his torture chambers.
Yeah.
Like it was like Switzerland and Iran. If it was so great, why'd they have a revolution? Exactly.
Yeah. Also, if it's time to punish them for their crimes under the Carter administration, why did we wait until 2025 to do it? Why is it an emergency now?
That's a hell of a slow burning emergency.
Yeah, that is a hell of a slow burn. Yes, this is a slowly evolving emergency.
We had a spectacular military success yesterday, taking the bomb right out of their hands. And they would use it if they could.
Fucking idiots.
But as usual, and despite all of the praise and accolades received, this lightweight congressman is against what was so brilliantly achieved last night in Iran. Massie is weak, ineffective, and votes no on virtually everything put before him. Rand Paul Jr., no matter how good something may be, he is disrespectful to our great military and all that they stand for, not even acknowledging their brilliance and bravery in yesterday's attack, which was a total and complete win. Hide behind the troops when you're not hiding behind the culture wars, although that is a form of culture wars. It's a very old form of it. Massie should drop his fake act and start putting America first. But he doesn't know how to get there. He doesn't have a clue. He'll undoubtedly vote against the great, big, beautiful bill, even though non-passage means a 68% tax increase for everybody. No. We've covered this quite a bit. It would mean a 68% tax increase for the top 20% income earners, i.e. your base, your real base, the base you actually serve, and many things far worse than that. MAGA should drop this pathetic loser, Tom Massie, like the plague. The good news is that we will have a wonderful American patriot running against him in the Republican primary, and I'll be out in Kentucky campaigning really hard. MAGA is not about lazy, grandstanding, non-productive politicians, of which Thomas Massie is definitely one. Thank you to our incredible military for the amazing job they did last night. It was really special. Make America great again. Listen, if you're not embarrassed by this president, you're a retard. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. I was embarrassed by Joe Biden. I thought that was embarrassing. Frankly, I was embarrassed by Barack Obama. Like, if this does not embarrass you, I don't know what to tell you, man. Like, that is pretty embarrassing. It's every time he speaks, it's like a vicious satire that might have been written in like 1987 about it's basically idiocracy. You are living idiocracy. James Lee, Trump just called on MAGA to disown Thomas Massie for being a loser. I am here to unequivocally state America would be infinitely better off with 435 fake MAGA Massies than even one of these real MAGA grifters. Well said, Mr. Lee. Well said. Hear, hear. So here's Axios with a little more on this. Scoop. Trump launches MAGA PAC in effort to oust Representative Massie from Congress. Trump's $500 million political apparatus is the most powerful, well-funded force in American politics and gives Trump a weapon with which to target any lawmaker who crosses him. Just an aside, I was reading another article today claiming that the Republicans overall have 5 times more money than the Democrats. And the Democrats being the Democrats, this is why, in spite of how bad this is, I don't assume anything about the midterms. Trump's team has launched Kentucky MAGA, a super PAC devoted to defeating Massie in the May 2026 primary. The organization will be run by Trump's senior political advisors, Tony Fabrizio and Chris Licevita. Licevita said the PAC would spend whatever it takes to defeat Massie. Plans for taking on Massie were in the works before the congressman decided to call Trump's attack on Iran unconstitutional, a Trump aide said. Trump's operation has been talking with potential Republican challengers to Massie. Aides say the goal is to rally around one Massie opponent so that multiple rivals don't splinter support. The Trump team earlier this month quietly commissioned a survey gauging Massie's support in his conservative central Kentucky district and found that the congressman would be vulnerable to a Trump-backed primary challenge. The survey, which was conducted by Trump pollster John McLaughlin, found that 52% would support a Trump-endorsed candidate and 23% support Massie. 87% approved of Trump compared to 52% for Massie, according to the poll, a copy of which was obtained by Axios. 74% said they supported the big, beautiful bill. Massie, who was first elected in 2012, easily survived primary challenges in the last 3 cycles. His advisors argue that his libertarian-minded independent streak endears him to voters. Quote, Massie's longtime opposition to President Trump's working family tax cuts and really anything to do with President Trump is coming to an end, Licevita said in a statement. Thomas Little Boy Massie will be fired. You know, they're getting serious. They're trotting out nicknames. Any serious person, Massie told Axios, any serious person considering running should spend money on an independent poll before letting swampy consultants take them for an embarrassing ride. I would be inclined to think he's probably right there based on the history of primary challenges to Massie. The fact that this is Trump's own pollster telling Trump what he wants to hear, which from everything we know about Trump is kind of the only way that you can keep a job with Trump. Like most dictatorial, narcissistic personalities, he doesn't take bad news from his employees well. Yeah, I think that that poll is probably bullshit. However, this will be very interesting because it is really going to test in a lab setting how much the MAGA movement is a cult of personality and how much it's driven by ideology. If Trump is able to sweep into Massie's district and call him a weak traitor who's betrayed our troops and is hurting the president's feelings and whatever shit they're going to trot out, and he's able to beat Massie with that, any argument that the MAGA movement is not just as mindless as the Democrats goes right out the window. This is a dynamic that anyone who tried to push populism in the Democratic Party will be very familiar with. The irony is this is kind of like Bernie won, declared war on Iran, and then went trying to whack progressives all over the country with a super PAC. What do you do with that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really buy that poll. But even if I did buy that poll, I'll just for argument's sake take that poll at face value, that internal poll from the Trump team. Talk to me as primary day draws nearer, which we're talking about, what, almost a year from now?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, let's see how much cachet Trump has at that point. Let's see him go to Kentucky and try to unseat Thomas Massie, who will have been vindicated, not just on the war with Iran, but on the big, beautiful bill by the time we get there. So I have a feeling he's in a good spot. I actually think it's kind of exciting. that Trump is doing this because I think it might end up massively backfiring. Just like Elon thought it was a really great idea to involve himself in that Wisconsin Supreme Court race, and that turned out to be the end of Elon as a politically influential figure. The same thing could happen here.
Sure.
You know, Trump could go and he can embarrass himself because I don't think any of these initiatives of his, be it the war with Iran or the big beautiful bill or anything else that Massie has spoken out against, I don't think any of these are going to look like they were good ideas by this time next year. And the primaries are usually around the spring, summertime. So that is one other advantage that Massie has working for him, is that by the time people actually get to vote on this, it's going to be pretty ugly. It's going to be pretty ugly. Trump's record is going to look pretty bad.
Yeah, I'll tell you who did not welcome this news. Every MAGA grifter out there who is going to have to figure out how to negotiate this.
Yeah, exactly. Well, look, I mean, hopefully...
This is their worst nightmare, a Massie-Trump battle royale. What do they do?
Hopefully some of these people with big followings, more in the libertarian lane, like the Dave Smiths, hopefully they go to Kentucky and they campaign for him. They campaign for him. I would even campaign for Thomas Massie against this Trump-backed rival. You know, I think he is positioning himself.
Let's reach out to his people.
Yeah. Let's see if they'll have us. Hey, these two Jew boys from New York want to come in do a campaign in Bowling Green, Kentucky. Let's see. I don't know if that's where he's from, but yeah, no.
I hear those boys give a barn buster of a speech.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yes, our services are available. All right. Let's see here. Ghost Electricity says 2 years ago I wrote and recorded a song called "Endless War." Artist name Ghost Electricity. Sadly, more relevant than ever. Please check it out. All right, go check out Endless War by Ghost Electricity. Fat Not So Fat says, by the way, I watched a DoD war game in person. The only way we won the war with Iran was using tactical nukes. Yeah, well, that's the other thing. Let's see here. Wasim Garani. Where's Wasim Garani's super chat? I lost track of that. Oh, there it is. I guess here is democracy at work. Iranian parliament has unanimously voted today to close off the Strait of Hormuz. That's right. Eric Torres, the balls to name it Rising Lion when all you did was get pounded and then ran crying for help. This is 2003. All over again. Jay Bell, thanks for the $2. To be fair, Irans and trans are pretty much the same word. There you go. The country boy threat. I was so mad at Keaton until Trump did this to us. Oh, well, you like me again. That's awesome to hear. Thank you. Sammy, thanks for the $9.99. My MAGA uncle is all of a sudden concerned about the Iranian women's rights. He says they should be able to wear the bikinis at the beach. He's MAGA woke now. Yeah, no, that's the other thing. Now we're also now we're you know, same thing. Now we have to like litigate how they manage their state. Fat Not So Fat, thanks to the 1999, says, I'm unfortunately a beneficiary of empire by working in the Defense Department. I plan to quit when my mom, who I take care of, passes away. Techno-feudalism is their goal. Folks, get out of America if you can. Thank you, Fat Not So Fat. Louise Brooks, our friend and patron supporter, she works for the Defense Department as well.
Yeah, I am doing something very uncharacteristic of New Yorkers with a rent-stabilized lease. I'm only signing for a year this year.
There you go.
I am not signing the 2 years. No, I'm keeping my options open.
New Yorkers always go for the 2. Brad Gilbert says, technocrats want JD in, so impeachment works for them. Look up Detachment 201. The AI execs are now Army Lieutenant Colonels. The President Palantir is ready to go. That might be true. That might be true. And if he continues these policies, you impeach him. I think you have to organize around that. There's just no case against it. It's simple. It's very, very simple.
Is this true? Somebody's saying in the chat, Kilmar Abrego to be released.
Is that true? I'm not sure. I'll have to look that up.
I'll look it up.
Yeah. See if that is true. Kim and G says, Trump is such a liar. The A-team worked more effectively than him and Netanyahu. I pity the fool who starts World War III. Thank you. Abiding says, we could have got a pony instead of this shit show if only we supported Vermin Supreme in 2016. That's right. Ardeen W, if anyone thinks Trump believes in God, I've got a war with Iran to sell them. Good one.
All right. So a judge ordered him released and they're appealing.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Interesting. All right. Which I go have the Israeli Zionist occupiers declared Cyprus and Greece as their long-lost holy lands yet. Who would do World War III for Israel harder, Trump or Kamala? Anti-woke World War III or woke World War III? I mean, the difference, I would say, is that Trump is more likely to crack your head open for protesting it. That would be, I think, the difference. But they would have both done this. I think that's pretty certain. Lori Lamb says, playing clips of Netanyahu and Trump caused me to leave. I started feeling ill. I don't blame you. I do not blame you for that. All right. Let's move right on along here. Let's see here. What do we got here? All right. Beautiful. All right, folks. Before we get on with the show, I just want to take a little game break to plug one of our dissident sponsors. So here on Do Dissidents, we're all about building a vibrant community of engaged listeners who connect with authentic voices and independent thought. And speaking of authentic voices, we want to spotlight John Koa, who's a compelling solo artist who's not just a longtime listener, but a true part of the dissident community. He has a 34-song collection of music coming out. It's called A to Z, and it's getting its finishing touches. This is a massive undertaking, and a release strategy for this many songs is currently being devised. Its arrival is imminent, but it will contain compelling interpretations of tracks like Jackson Brown's Dr. My Eyes, Ben Harper's Excuse Me, Mister, and the Stones' Give Me Shelter, songs whose lyrics, it turns out, feel remarkably timely. And so while A to Z prepares for its launch, make sure you've caught John Koa's 2 latest studio singles on all your favorite streaming platforms. You can find John Koa's YouTube channel at youtube.com/@JohnKoa. You can also get links to all of his socials, including his Spotify, where he has a new single out as well at dodissidents.com/Koa. So Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube, all the links can be found at dodissidents.com/Koa. So please head over there and check that out. We played one of his songs on the Rumble side last week.
Good.
Great stuff. Great stuff from John. So go and please support if you can. Okay, let's move right on along. All right, folks, so we are going to now get into what exactly happened at these Iranian nuclear facilities. So the Pentagon says Iranian nuclear capabilities are devastated after U.S. strikes. That's right. This was called Operation Midnight Hammer. We're going to hear Pete Hegseth tell us all about it. Now, to be fair, every night is Operation Midnight Hammer at the Pete Hegseth residence, so this is not unusual. So he is well versed in explaining Project Midnight Hammer. So let's hear from Pete Hegseth.
Trump's orders, U.S. Central Command conducted a precision strike in the middle of the night against 3 nuclear facilities in Iran, Fordow, Natanz, and Esfahan, in order to destroy or severely degrade Iran's nuclear program. And as the chairman of the Joint Chiefs will demonstrate, it was an incredible and overwhelming success. The order we received from our commander-in-chief was focused, it was powerful, and it was clear. We devastated the Iranian nuclear program. But it's worth noting the operation did not target Iranian troops or the Iranian people. For the entirety of his time in office, President Trump has consistently stated for over 10 years that Iran must not get a nuclear weapon. Full stop. Thanks to President Trump's bold and visionary leadership and his commitment to peace through strength, Iran's nuclear ambitions have been obliterated. Many presidents have dreamed of delivering the final blow to Iran's nuclear program, and none could until President Trump. The operation President Trump planned was bold and it was brilliant, showing the world that American deterrence is back. When this president speaks, the world should listen. And the U.S. military, we can back it up. The most powerful military the world has ever known. No other country on planet Earth could have conducted the operation that the chairman is going to outline this morning. Not even close. Just like Soleimani found out in the first term, Iran found out when POTUS says 60 days that he seeks peace and negotiation, he means 60 days of peace and negotiation. Otherwise, that nuclear program, that nuclear capability will not exist. He meant it.
We'll rally, stand up, be American.
That's right. The U.S. attack on Iran's nuclear sites involved 7 B-2 stealth bombers and also included at least 1 submarine, according to General Dan Kane, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff at the Pentagon press conference. Kane said the mission, dubbed Operation Midnight Hammer, represented the largest B-2 strike in U.S. history, involving more than 125 aircraft, including decoy flights, and saw 75 precision-guided weapons dropped on the sites. Final battle damage will take some time, but initial battle damage assessments indicate that all 3 sites sustained extremely severe damage and destruction, Kane said. So let's hear some of his closing remarks at the press conference this morning.
This mission demonstrates the unmatched reach, coordination, and capability of the United States military. In just a matter of weeks, this went from strategic planning to global execution. This operation underscores the unmatched capabilities and global reach of the United States military. As the President clearly said last night, no other military in the world could have done this. I join the President and the Secretary in being incredibly proud of the air crews, naval forces, cyber operators, planners, and support teams, and commanders who made this mission possible. It is their skill, discipline, and teamwork that makes this operation possible.
So really talking this up here, when asked on NBC News Meet the Press about the status of Iran's nuclear enrichment sites, Vice President Vance said he was very confident that we have substantially delayed their development of a nuclear weapon, and that was the goal of this attack. So here is J.D. Vance on Meet the Press.
The nuclear enrichment sites were, quote, completely and totally obliterated. There is some question about that, though, this morning. Do you have 100% confidence that Iran's nuclear sites were totally destroyed?
Well, Kristen, I'm not going to get into sensitive intelligence about what we've seen on the ground there in Iran, but we've seen a lot, and I feel very confident that we have substantially delayed their development of a nuclear weapon, and that was the goal of this attack. That's why it was a success. And, of course, what happens next, again, Kristen, is up to the Iranians.
Substantially delayed by years? What does substantial
Well, again, Kristen, I'm not going to get into sensitive intelligence here, but I think that we have really pushed their program back by a very long time. I think that it's going to be many, many years before the Iranians are able to develop a nuclear weapon. But again, our goal is that they're never able to develop a nuclear weapons program, and that is a conversation that we're going to have with the Iranians and also with our allies in the region.
So Iran, again...
Our allies in the region, meaning the maniacs who instigated this war that they've wanted for decades. So let's see here. How effective was the U.S. attack on Iran's nuclear sites? A visual guide. All right. So here you could see this is the first of the sites. What is it? What is the name of the fucking thing? Fordham. Yeah, Fordham. Yes, it's just Fordham.
They bombed Fordham.
Yeah, Fordham. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What the fuck is it? Fordo. That's what it's called, right? Yeah. So here you can see the before picture. Oops, I'm sorry. The before picture here, and then the after picture here. Now, it's a little difficult to see exactly what we're looking at and the implications of it, but we'll get into that as the article displays. As you can see, the main building there, kind of that like white building on the left side inside that loop, that seems to have remained intact, but then you could obviously see some damage sustained to the rest of it. The Atomic Energy Organization of Iran confirmed that attacks took place on its Fordo, Isfahan, and Natanz sites, but insisted its nuclear program would not be stopped. Iran and the UN nuclear watchdog said there were no immediate signs of radioactive contamination around the 3 locations after the strikes. The Iranian Red Crescent Society reported no deaths from the U.S. strikes, appearing to confirm Iranian claims they had been largely evacuated in advance. Long regarded as the most difficult military target among Iran's nuclear sites, the uranium enrichment facilities at Fordo, the primary target of the operation, are buried beneath the Zagros Mountains. Reports have suggested that the site was constructed beneath 45 to 90 meters of bedrock, largely limestone and dolomite. The attack, codenamed Operation Midnight Hammer, was carried out by 7 B-2 Spirit stealth bombers flying from the U.S. after a deception flight by other B-2s into the Pacific. Tomahawk missiles were fired from U.S. ships in waters south of Iran. The result, to a large extent, depends on the kind of concrete inside the facility. Estimates of the bunker busters' penetration are based largely on reinforced concrete resistant up to 5,000 pounds per square inch. Iran is believed to have used more resistant concrete. While video from the site showed evidence of a fire in the immediate aftermath, satellite images published on Sunday were suggestive but far from conclusive. The main support building at the site appeared to be undamaged, as we saw earlier, but the topography of a prominent area of ridgeline appeared to have altered and been flattened out, with some evidence of rock scarring close to 2 clusters of bomb craters around the ridge. Analysts had suggested that a strike could hit the main entrance tunnel to the site, but the main effort appears to have been in a different location. At odds with Trump's claim of complete obliteration, 2 Israeli officials who spoke to the New York Times described serious damage at Fordo, but said the site had not been completely destroyed. So now you can get a little better idea of what we're looking at as they label things. So the entrances to the underground facility, those are in the yellow squares. The enrichment plant, which is that rectangular building on the left, the white building, that appears to have not been destroyed. Doesn't look like it's sustained much damage. Of course, this is just a satellite photo, so we can't say that conclusively. But then you can see inside the red circles are the large holes visible along the ridge above the facility. That, I assume, is where the bunker buster bombs were able to penetrate. So on the right side, you can see how these work. Once deployed from high altitude, GPS guidance system locks onto target. The bomb relies on weight and velocity to penetrate hardened surfaces. So you can assume that those craters in the ground are where those bunker busters broke the surface. And then the question is, how far down did they go and how much damage did they do? We don't really have conclusive information about that, although, of course, there are competing claims. The Americans are saying it was total destruction. The Iranians are saying they only really damaged the tunnels heading in and out. It's not conclusive at this time whether either of those descriptions are fully accurate or whose is more accurate. Isfahan's nuclear technology center was struck by Tomahawk cruise missiles fired from an Ohio-class submarine as opposed to bunker busters. Video posted on social media showed a distant detonation from the site on Saturday night. According to the IAEA, in addition to 4 hit by Israeli strikes, 6 other buildings had now been attacked, including a fuel rod production facility. It said facilities targeted at Isfahan either contained no nuclear material or small quantities of natural or low-enriched uranium. So here you have, this is the Isfahan before and after. You could see noticeable damage from the contrasting satellite photos there. So this is a closer look here. Imagery from Isfahan nuclear facility where U.S. Navy launched 30 Tomahawk cruise missiles. Natanz, this is the third one, had previously been damaged by the first Israeli strikes of the conflict, with assessments then suggesting they had hit the power plant supplying the main centrifuge hall. Uranium had been enriched up to 60%, short of weapons-grade material. It appears that Natanz's underground enrichment hall was targeted. Enhancement of satellite images from the site on Sunday showed fresh damage to overground buildings and new cratering in the center of the site. So once again, there is the before and after, and you can see those craters, which look similar to the craters at Fordo. Before and after satellite images from the Maxar Technologies taken on June 15th and 22nd. Iran has claimed that it evacuated the site several days ago, and satellite imagery from several days ago suggests there was unusual truck traffic at Fordo. That appears to confirm the movement of some material from the site, possibly including the uranium stockpile or parts of it, which remains unaccounted for. Hassan Abedini, the deputy political head of Iran's state broadcaster, said Iran had evacuated the 3 sites, Natanz, Isfahan, and Fordo, some time ago. The enriched uranium reserves had been transferred from the nuclear centers, and there are no materials left there that, if targeted, would cause radiation and be harmful to our compatriots, he said. 3 days before the U.S. attack, 16 cargo trucks were seen near the Fordo entrance tunnel. The head of the AEOI, Mohammad Eslami, claimed this month that Iran had another enrichment site in a secure and invulnerable location that could house centrifuges. Analysts have long argued that while it is possible to disrupt the physical function of a nuclear facility and limit the scope of a program through, for example, the killing of scientists, which we know Israel did, the breadth of technical knowledge acquired during the decades-long program is impossible to destroy. Ultimately, the question is whether the U.S.-Israeli attacks are seen as sufficient for Iran to capitulate, or whether they instead encourage the regime to accelerate its efforts to produce a viable nuclear weapon. I think the latter is far more likely than the former. That's the long-term question. In the short term, the question is, what is the scope of the Iranian retaliation, and does that invite the United States to deploy forces to the region? This is why I said in an earlier segment, for all the talk, even though Donald Trump just undid that with his, lunatic Truth Social post, all the talk about how, no, we're not really in this for regime change, that's irrelevant. You struck these 3 key nuclear sites. Iran is saying they have another one that we don't know about. Seems like they may have that. Fiorella Isabel tweeted out it would be foolish to think they don't have a secret site that they can offload this stuff to in an anticipation of an attack that certainly they had seen coming for a while. We can't confirm that, obviously, but that does seem like a claim to take very seriously. And then, obviously, the question beyond that, that's sort of the long-term question of does this nuclear program continue, which I think it will. I can't imagine they will take this as just a sufficient reprimanding to fall in line. But irrespective of that, what is the retaliation? Because at this point, that is the only question that determines the short-term trajectory of this war. What is the scope and nature of their retaliation? If they hit American interests, it's pretty obvious what we're going to do. If they lay off American interests but keep hitting Israeli interests, at that point, what does Donald Trump do? All indications are that he is going to do whatever Israel wants either way. But that remains the only real question mark in terms of how this is going to go. Long term, is this going to make them more likely to develop a nuclear weapon? Yes. And you know what I base that on? The fact that we had a deal with them in 2015 that Donald Trump scratched. And if we take this administration at their word, that means that they took that as an invitation to develop up to 60%. So let's just play their game. If that is the case, what will this do? In other words, if the scrapping of the first deal led us to this point, then what is this going to do? This is going to lead them even further down the road of nuclearization, which will make the Middle East even less stable. And as Noam Chomsky said, we played this on the Jimmy Dore show, you could solve all this very, very easily. Israel could give up their nukes. Once Israel gives up their nukes, the Arab states in the region have already said, we will make this a nuclear weapons-free zone. 5 such zones exist in the world. South America is one giant nuclear weapons-free zone. Did you know that? It's amazing how few people know this. All the South American countries signed a treaty saying we will not develop nukes so that one country can't have their boot on the neck of the other country with the nuclear threat hanging over them. The Middle Eastern countries, the Arab states, are willing to make the Middle East, a very volatile region, a nuclear weapons-free zone. You know who won't do it? Israel. You know why they won't do it? Because they already have nuclear weapons. Because they already have nuclear weapons. And Iran is the bully in the region, not Israel.
Yeah, if you look at the message that we have put out to the world under Democratic and Republican administrations, the message is if you deal in good faith with the United States on developing nuclear weapons, you end up with a knife in your ass.
Right.
That's what happened to Gaddafi. That's what he got for dealing with the United States in good faith. That order was under Obama. It's not a Republican Democrat thing. Look at North Korea. You see us trying to invade North Korea. You think we would not invade North Korea if they did not have nuclear weapons?
Of course.
That we would not have instigated a South Korean invasion of the North probably decades ago if they did not have nuclear weapons, if we did not have to worry about that. We probably would have done it 15, 20 years ago. We would have pushed the South into North Korea. That's the message we're putting out to the world.
Yep.
So whatever happens with Iran, the rest of the world is never going to want to make any kind of deal with us again. And they're going to be very careful to keep any programs like this they have very secret and very hidden.
Yep.
You're telling the world you have to proliferate. You're seeing a lot of people say with some justification, the biggest mistake Iran made was not developing a nuclear weapon.
Yep.
They developed a nuclear weapon, they'd be safe right now. None of this would be happening. That's why they don't want them to have a nuclear weapon, because they want to be able to keep the boot on their neck. Does anyone really believe, like set aside the propaganda they push out to the rubes? Does anybody really believe that Iran, if they did have a nuclear weapon, would just launch it at Israel? Because mutually assured destruction.
Right.
Right. All right. Cold wars don't get any hotter than our war was with Russia for decades. Did anybody launch a nuke? No, because they didn't want to get nuked. Mutually assured destruction. Even if they had a nuke, Israel has nuclear weapons.
Exactly.
So what makes you think they would launch it? And in terms of it being a threat to us, nobody is proposing that Iran is anywhere near being able to send an intercontinental ballistic missile to the United States. So that argument is nonsense. This is purely about Israel. And even on that level, it doesn't hold up. They're the ones with the nukes.
They're the ones with the nukes. Exactly. They're the ones who have the nukes. So we are not in any physical danger at all. Israel claims they might be, but even if Iran were to develop a nuclear weapon, yes, Israel already has the deterrence. Not only do they have a nuclear weapon, they have the Samson option. They have a codified, protocol to basically use it to bring
and they're
about
right next
the
door
end of
to
the region.
Iran. The fallout would hit them.
Yeah.
Why would they do that?
It's complete insanity. Of course, I mean, this is just propaganda on another level, which is not surprising. I mean, you knew it would get to this point if they were ever to pull the trigger on this war. And now they are looking as though they are going to. And we just have to do everything we can to stop it. We have to communicate to all of these politicians, this is unacceptable. The lesson of Iraq is still fresh enough in our minds. We're not going to fall for this again. Absolutely not. We cannot. All right. Let's see here. What do we got here? Dorian Marquis says, Van Jones, Democrats all complicit. Yeah, I think we have some of Van Jones coming up. Thanks, Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna, for uniting. J.D. Vance is still complicit. Look at his 2024 interviews. Mark Pugliese says, I remember showing my students how Hormuz is the cork in the oil bottle in 1980. Thank you, Mark Pugliese. Gulnar Marchesi, thank you for the $20 super sticker. Appreciate that. Michael R. says, Turkey isn't willing to be America's fall guy or hitman. Katrina Greshner, thanks for the $10, says, please watch her take when Anna Kay debates POS Adam from PBD. I saw the clip of him throwing a tampon at her. That was pretty unhinged. I would wager good money that he has verbally abused every one of his exes. Mental health tip for those who need it. Adopt a kitten. There you go. That's good advice. Brad Gilbert says, watch John Cullen's work on Butler. Fake AF. Thank you, Brad Gilbert. Rod McKinnon recommended change for the intro. I'm Ted Cruz, as my pronoun is head up my ass. Thank you for that very, very much.
We are going to revise that. We've just been really, really busy.
Yeah, exactly. We will get to it. That is definitely on our list. All right, folks, quick break for a word from Rumble Premium here. So this sponsorship is from Rumble, and it's one that's incredibly important to the survival of the company. So when Rumble launched in 2013, they built the platform for the small creator. They didn't censor or have biases. They were fair and treated all creators equally. No one thought platforms would censor political conversation or censor opinions on issues like COVID, but they did, and Facebook admitted they fell to such pressure from the Biden and Harris administration. Rumble did not, however. They held the line, and they're attacked daily for giving shows like us a voice to talk to audiences like you. They're attacked in corporate media. They're attacked by governments like France. They are attacked from brand advertisers who refuse to work with them. So while corporate America is fighting to remove speech, Rumble is fighting to maintain it. But Rumble won't survive with brand advertisers alone because they don't get many of them. So watching our show on Rumble is the most they can ask from you. But if you really believe in this fight, and if you have the means, one major way you can help Rumble survive is by joining Rumble Premium. That's the community that believes in the First Amendment and believes in our human right to free speech. Rumble is offering $10 off with the promo code STUDIO when you purchase an annual subscription. So go to rumble.com/premium and use promo code STUDIO. That gets you ad-free access to the Rumble platform as well as premium content from select creators. So like I said, if you have the means and believe in the cause, now is the time to join Rumble Premium. If you don't have the means, we're of course just happy if you watch us on the platform. Okay, great. All right, let's move right on along here. All right, so we are still on World War III watch, folks. It's that big an issue, believe it or not. Pretty important, pretty important. Let's get into some MAGA takes and then some lib takes. This is the fun part of World War III. We get to point and laugh at the takes. That's what you're here for, right? You're all here for the takes. It's
You're
all
here
about
for the takes.
Yes.
All right. So MAGA is coping hard in some sectors, and some are rebelling against this turn of events. Here is somebody who is coping pretty hard, claiming this is 17D chess or some shit.
Like the U.S. military just went in and bombed Iran. They went in and bombed 3 nuclear sites. They got in and got out. You know, the stealth bombers. I don't know how they detected the stealth bombers anyways, but the news is talking about it. So Trump said the planes are out and they're on their way back home, and he's ready for peace now. So what just happened, in my firm opinion, is we know the left cabal, deep state of Israel, is on a mission, and Trump took out their mission. Their mission was to make sure that there was no nukes in Iran. Well, Trump said, okay, I'll move in and take out the nuclear sites, and now what? I think it's a bait, because Israel's not going to stop attacking them, and Trump's going to say, why are you still attacking them? I just took out the nuclear sites. What are you doing? And that's going to open up the floodgates on who Israel really is. Mark my words, in the coming days. Watch.
All will be revealed.
Peacemaker.
All lies will be exposed.
Drew them in. What a chess move.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
He's great.
Okay. He didn't do this for Israel. He did it to expose Israel. And Israel, this virulently fascistic apartheid state that defends its existence on the grounds of representing true Western values in a sea of barbarians, is a left cabal. That's a left-wing government you have there in Israel. This prototypically fascist, ethno-nationalist state is left. Wow. All right.
Yeah. That was his.
I guess
that
it's
was
a living.
That was his InfoWars audition tape. Alex Jones was like, you know what, this guy's good. Hey, Nick Fuentes, you're fucking fired. Let's get this guy in.
Hey, you know what? I just like Paul Joseph Watson. He's going soft. He's going soft. I think you can pick up his torch, man.
Yeah.
Buzz Patterson. I don't think many Americans understand what we just did. B-2 bombers took off for 2 30,000-pound bunker buster bombs each. Took off from Kansas City, Missouri. Flew nonstop to Iran. Dropped bombs precisely on target. Flew all the fucking way back to Kansas City. That's 30 hours. Yee-haw! Balls. Big one. That's my Air Force. That's America. We'll find you everywhere, especially the brown ones. He didn't say that last part, but he meant it. Okay, and here's Fox News pumping up. This is kind of working through the MAGA bloodstream. They're really trying to get this to take. The idea that this was all foreshadowed by Top Gun Maverick.
What we're looking at here is we're being told this is, I think, anywhere from just shy of 200 to 300 feet in depth. There are all kind of reports out there of 1,000 foot, but I think that's more propaganda. So what you end up doing is if you saw the movie, the latest Top Gun movie, eerily enough, this is that plot kind of coming to fruition in real life. It's not just one bomb. It'll be a bomb after a bomb to get through that penetration.
And just lastly, that's what you're talking about. Can penetrate up to 200 feet below the surface. And then, of course, we'll see it try and put the second one in there and go down in there. Yeah. Let's bring in David Burke, our Top Gun and former Top Gun instructor, retired.
Yep. All about the Top Gun. Now, somebody who reinforced this narrative, Matt Gaetz. Matt Gaetz. I want to know who at Top Gun Maverick knew the future. Now, all of this, when you see all these people saying the same thing, what that tells you with some assurance is these people have handlers of one kind or another that tell them what they want put out there. Now, this is a little surprising from Matt Gaetz, because Matt Gaetz, before they actually did the bombing, he did a whole little video about the fact that Israel actually is the one with the nukes.
If the world is interested in a secret nuclear program in the Middle East, there is a country that won't allow any international inspectors. Israel. Israel has a nuclear weapon. Did you know that? I do. They allow no inspections. They are fully secretive and clandestine about it, and the Americans are fully aware. You know what? I don't even blame Israel for this. If they want to develop a nuclear weapon, if they had the blessing to do so secretly, I'm not in judgment of that. But to drag the world into a regime change war over secret nuclear weapons, when you have secret nuclear weapons, is a bit hypocritical. President Trump is the kind of guy who never gives up on a deal. Throughout his life, he's probably made deals and made lots of money on them, even when others walked away or didn't see value in a transaction. So here's a deal. How about Iran and Israel both give up their secret nuclear weapon programs? If Trump got that deal, he wouldn't only get the Nobel Peace Prize, they'd probably name it the Trump Peace Prize forevermore.
All right, so now you know what's funny about this. So he goes right on. This maybe like 2 days later, approximately, Trump bombs Iran. And here he is, same guy. President Trump basically wants this to be like the Soleimani strike. One and done. No regime change war. Trump the peacemaker. This is the same guy that just did this whole video about how Israel's the ones with the nukes.
Yeah, okay, the ivermectin sales were dog shit on that broadcast. They're like, get the fuck back on message. This shit ain't gonna move itself. Message. Yeah, we can't move these torches.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Only the military is out until now.
Yeah,
we can't move them. Yeah. Hey. Look, just like in the Democrat. You got your sheepdogs, you'd be like surprised when Bernie would go up there, the millionaires and the billionaires. And then in the next sentence go, my good friend Joe Biden. Or in the next sentence say, you must vote for Hillary Clinton. Yo, man, you got your sheepdogs on the other side too, man. That's what they're there for. They're there to build credibility by attacking the establishment. But then when they need them, they pull that card and they always fall in line. Right? It's just like the squad. When push comes to shove, they'll always fall in line.
Right. Papa Bear. Donald Trump is Papa Bear.
Papa Bear, right. Laura Loomer, she went off quite a bit. There's just one example. I do not want to hear anyone ever again cite Tucker Carlson as a voice of reason. This is a guy who claims he was attacked by a demon in his bed and left bloodied and clawed. He should take his shirt off and show us the scars. Be the first time a man has taken his shirt off in front of me in 20 years. I think he's just losing it. And he thinks we are crazy for wanting Iran to not have nukes. Show us the scars, Tucker Carlson, or just shut the fuck up. Now, look, to his credit, Tucker read this and he responded with some images from his security feed. You can see very, very, very clearly a demon outside his house.
Did you find that somewhere, or is that Grok or something?
No, that is from Tucker Carlson's security feed.
Yeah, right.
Apparently, this is the demon. So, Tucker, I would say point Tucker. Hey, man, he produced the evidence.
He produced the evidence.
So,
Seriously, I'm curious. Did you find that, or is that Grok? Did you make that?
I made it.
So it wasn't AI. You just did it.
yeah. Way to ruin the bit.
No, I'm just curious. You got the punchline. The punchline's there. I didn't step on a punchline.
Yeah.
Plus, we have to reveal if it's AI. We have to note it for the YouTubes.
I mean,
so you made it. Yeah,
I think this happened.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I believe this happened.
Yeah.
I identify as someone who believes this.
Yeah,
happened.
I identify as someone who believes it.
Yes. No, it is AI. They can do amazing things.
Wow, that's pretty great. That's pretty wild.
Right?
Yeah, that's cool. Really looks like him.
I mean, now we're just going to cut this section, except for the reveal that it's AI. But yeah, because you do kind of have to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, no. I asked for fat man in a red devil suit, and then I took that picture, and then I went to a face swap program, and it put the face on.
Oh wow, that's cool. Wow.
Yep. Incredible what they can do now.
Yeah.
Wait
They can
until I
recreate
actually
true
learn
events.
to.
Yeah.
Yes, true. That is what we did here. This is a recreation.
Recreation of a real event.
Yeah. Fuck you, I'm the devil. Roll over. Okay. All right. This is going off the rails here. Meghan McCain. Okay, so this shows you how little morals these people have at their core. Meghan McCain. Trump really doesn't give two shits what Tucker Carlson thinks. Isn't this the guy that said he preferred soldiers that didn't get captured about your tortured POW father?
Right.
Wow. What? You're talking, look, most of us here watching the show, doing the show, we don't have money. She's got go fuck yourself money for the rest of her life, man.
Right.
She's an heiress. She's rich. Why would you degrade yourself like this? For what? For what? It's not like you need to do that so that your kids can eat, right? A lot of people have to do degrading shit so that they can support their family. Why would you do that? Why would you throw your dad under the bus like that? How can you kiss the ass of the man who said that about your father? Wow.
Right.
Wow, what a piece of garbage, man.
Then again, her father really wanted this war, and he gave it to him. So
well, that's true. She might feel that it evens out now.
Right.
All is forgiven now. Charlie Kirk, Iran gave President Trump no choice. For a decade, he has been adamant that Iran will never get a nuclear weapon. Iran decided to forego diplomacy in pursuit of a bomb. This is a surgical strike operated perfectly. President Trump acted with prudence and decisiveness. Now watch what he does next. Watch what he does next. Stay armed. Stay vigilant. We have no idea how many sleeper cells are inside the United States. It's an unforgivable weakness Biden left this country with. Stay alert. Cray, you see what they're doing there? You see what they're doing there? They've got to tie it all into immigration. That polls best for them, and try to make everything about that. It's just like George Bush. After a while, I think it was Giuliani who actually said this about Bush, that everything he said was a noun, a verb, and 9/11.
Right.
It's true. Like he could be cutting a ribbon at a supermarket. He'd go, you see, that's like the terrorists.
Yeah,
They
right.
hate
Yeah,
our freedom.
exactly. Yeah.
Didn't matter what it was. Whatever it is, they're going to tie it back to immigration and Biden and open borders and culture war. Case in point, Nancy Mace just texted POTUS to congratulate him. Greatest president in American history. I'm speechless. He's done what no one else could ever do. And what's her next thing? What's her next point? I really hope those bunker buster bombs were paid for using taxpayer dollars originally meant for DEI programs. See, that's what I said after I went to the douchebag dialogues, and I'm a little embarrassed. It took that to open my eyes, but open my eyes it did.
She should be aware Iran has very strict laws against, LGBT activity.
They do. She should go there. She'd probably be pretty happy there.
Yeah,
she'd like it there.
Yeah, she won't run into any guys in the bathroom, that's for sure.
Definitely not. Definitely not. And if
Paradise.
she reports them,
yeah,
right? Yeah, this is what the anti-woke thing is for. This is what it's for, right? That's it. It's so that at moments like this, they can try to make the possible obliteration of the human race a culture war issue.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
All right. It's all about DEI.
Right.
Even World War III is about DEI.
Right.
So here's
about DIE.
DEI. Right. So here's Steve Bannon, who again, he's another one. In the end, he's not gonna alienate the Trumpies. He just went and had lunch with Donald Trump.
Right.
He's another one who's gonna sheepdog you back in by pretending to be an outsider. Just like Bernie. These people are all like Bernie on the other side. They're going to talk a good game, and when the chips are down, that's what they're there for. Somebody gives them a call, and then they use the credibility that they built up with people who might be inclined to rebel, and they sheepdog them back in.
MAGA, they're not happy about this. I'll just be blunt. We can tell this in the chats right now. I think John's trying to come in. John Solomon's trying to join us. The president's got to, make the address. I also think he's got to talk to MAGA. There are a lot of MAGA that are not happy about this. I'll just be blunt. We can tell this in the chats right now. There are a lot of the chats that are just saying, hey, I hear you, but, you promised you wouldn't do this. I hear your thing, and maybe they didn't negotiate. So I do think, as I said, I believe he will get MAGA on board, all of it, but he's got to explain exactly and go through this. And remember, I said today, the party is on, using that World War II phrase, who's going to host it? And early in the evening, we were hoping and working with people and saying, hey, maybe Israel is going to step up here. I think a big question is going to be why Israel did not take the lead and do this. Because right now, this is back to the United States. And I understand maybe we could get Fordo, but I think that's got to be explained. Israel did not finish what they started. That's the bottom line. And I'm telling you, a lot of people I know that are Israel supporters are going to say, why are we doing the heavy lift here? And why are we engaging in combat operations in a war that's a war of choice?
Mm-hmm. All right. So you see how he's shifting the goalposts of the conversation. He's massaging you into seeing this as something that had to happen. But, a lot of people are going to have questions about why we had to be involved, and they have to explain that. You see, he's opening that door. It's explainable, but Trump just has to communicate, right? That's his job. That's what he does. That's why he has a platform. That's why you don't see Trump sending out truths about sloppy Steve and how he's not MAGA, because he does his job when they need him to. That's his job. Sheepdog you back into the Trump Republican Party. Some people ain't having it. Jake Shields, as Americans, how long will we tolerate this? At what point do we say enough is enough? And that is over the infamous picture of Trump pulling out the chair for Netanyahu. Ian Carroll. So do I just send my tax return to Tel Aviv next year? Not sure exactly how we do taxes in Israel. Do we get health care now at least? Tim Pool, this is a funny guy to jump out in front of this parade. Gas prices about to skyrocket. U.S. will deploy to secure the strait Iran will strike U.S. personnel and assets. U.S. will evade. This is over the news that Iran's parliament voted to close off the Strait of Hormuz. Now, nobody should be too surprised that Tim Pool is kind of, malleable morally, but I think it's pretty obvious who Tim works for in the end. This is a pretty infamous clip where he just had an absolute meltdown when they started talking about the Israeli strike on the USS Liberty.
Concerned with having American aircraft carriers over there. Like, what I keep being told about the USS Liberty. That's something with the Israeli government.
No, you should.
No. Wait.
You should be careful about that.
Allegedly, the Israeli Air Force jet fighter aircraft.
I mean, they did end up paying out the American government.
So I'm concerned, like, false flag operation, like a missile comes out of Gaza and hits one of our aircraft carriers, but it was actually an Israeli missile. I don't want. We should get out of there.
It doesn't. But let me stop you there. It doesn't matter where the missile comes from.
That's weird, huh? Holy shit.
Now that is a man who's been bought, compromised, or both, right? So when you see him jumping out in front of the parade, it's very much like Steve Bannon. They're going to use him later when they need him. Now he's going to try to establish some plausibility as an anti-war voice so he can sheepdog you later. Obviously, that clip makes absolutely no sense in any context other than Israel owns Tim Pool's ass for one reason or another, one way or another. Nick Fuentes tweeted out, this is a few months back, when he got caught meeting with Netanyahu with Dave Rubin. Tim Pool met with Netanyahu yesterday and complained about anti-Israel, anti-Semitic content, which he blamed on Qatar. This is Dave Rubin at that meeting, but Tim Pool thought he was going to be able to keep this under the radar incognito. He complained later on his show that it was supposed to be
Chatham House.
Chatham House rules. This wasn't supposed to come out. So he's not in the picture, but this was the same meeting that Tim Pool was at. Dave Rubin, no surprise there. At least he's open about his make Israel first, putting Israel first. Imagine being American and being upset right now. Sad. Okay, Dave. Why'd you go live there, man? I don't understand all these motherfuckers. I said this too. I actually know an Israeli who lives here. I said, "Why, yo, man, you're from there. Why'd you go back there? You don't want to go back there? Then shut the fuck up. Shut up. Go enlist, man. Go enlist. You want to stay here and talk this shit?"
Right.
Megyn Kelly. They'll take Dave. Don't you remember? They're all LGBTQ, LMNOP friendly over there, right? Right? They got all the Michael Rappaport. Yo, you can shoot a guy up the fucking ass in an alleyway. Only place in the Middle East you can have a triple-sided dildo here. Nobody cares. Go over there, Dave. They'll love you over there. Megyn Kelly. God bless the United States of America and her courageous men and women in uniform who risk their lives to do the impossible. We pray for them now and for our commander-in-chief. Who buys this shit anymore? You know, it's funny. It's like when you watch old propaganda movies and it's so obvious we're just not those people anymore, right? We just, yes, and here are our brave soldiers marching to the front. And you watch it now, it's laughable. That's kind of how this feels now. You know what I mean? Like, this is what I mean. This is not 2003. We're not those people anymore.
Yeah,
you
no,
read
it's
this,
very
it's
bizarre.
like absurd. It's like, who buys this language anymore?
Yeah.
Well, Roseanne does. This is what I voted for. You know, it reminds me of the old Dennis Leary bit. You know, the people the rock stars that you want to live, they die, and the ones you want to die never would.
Yeah.
Roseanne Barr is one of those celebrities. I can't believe a cholesterol clog has not gotten this woman yet. Marjorie Taylor Greene. Every time America is on the verge of greatness, we get involved in another foreign war. Were we on the verge of greatness?
Yeah, we were just right there.
It was just right around the corner.
God damn it.
there would not be bombs falling on the people of Israel if Netanyahu had not dropped bombs on the people of Iran first. Well, fair enough. She's right about that. Israel is a nuclear-armed nation. This is not our fight. Peace is the answer. Better than 99% of what you're hearing coming out of the Democrats. Rosy picture of the potentialities of the Trump administration notwithstanding. Richard Spencer stole Keaton's joke.
Stole my joke.
Well, at least transsexuals can no longer play girls volleyball.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's a plus. That's a plus. And finally, Konstantin Kassin with his very reliable, insightful wisdom. I am incredibly grateful that President Trump didn't listen to warmongers like Tucker Carlson, who wanted to nuke Iran in retaliation for trying to assassinate him, and we got a surgical strike on nuclear facilities instead. Blessed are the peacemakers. Yo, man, you got to have fucking balls like coconuts to write that tweet. Wow, no, he was actually making peace.
Yeah.
He was actually showing restraint. What a piece of garbage that guy is. So, yeah, man, MAGA is shambolic. MAGA is in shambles now. It's torn apart. And, hey, man, I know we always, whenever we talk about stuff like this, you get people like, I'm MAGA and I'm disgusted. I know you're out. We know you're out there.
Yeah,
we know you're out there. And good for you. And raise your voice. And we showed there are some people in that movement that are speaking out. And good for them. But when I say shambolic, it's clearly this is going to create a civil war within that movement. And that's why I say for us who are populists, who are in favor of people-powered movements, there's an opportunity here. Because the MAGA people who are not going to go along with the cult of personality, those are people we should open a conversation with. And then when you see the ones who go along with this, that's when you're going to know who's getting paid, who's an agent, who's a plant, who's an op. Yeah, man, you could get some people who are this stupid, like the freaking Busby Berkeley fucking lieutenant guy who was, praising the bombers. I think that guy really means it. I don't think you got to give that guy $1 to say that shit. But 99% of these podcasters and Xer online personalities on X, yeah, man, they're ops, man. They get marching orders. They get told what to do. This broke a couple months ago, where it was a rare window into what really goes on, where all of these influencers were just given $1,000 to promote sugar and soft drinks as a freedom issue. They didn't even ask any questions. They just did it.
Right.
So that tells you how easy it is to buy most of these people. And the people with bigger platforms, I'm sure they get more than $1,000 to promote World War III.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a completely done. I mean, the movement is completely over. And the only question is, at what point do people like Marjorie Taylor Greene have to start incorporating Donald Trump into their list of people to blame for this? Because it's just not going to be tenable much longer without calling him out by name. And what you're going to be left with in Trump's coalition is a group of people like Constantine, like Dave Rubin, like Megyn Kelly, like Meghan McCain, like Roseanne Barr. That's not a majority coalition. That's not a winning coalition. They need the anti-war element of their base in order to constitute a majority coalition. That's key. That's indispensable. You're basically just going to be left with a Daily Wire audience that likes to, slur people.
Right. Well, that's what I said after I went.
Like a politically incorrect. Somebody said it earlier. They said they're basically just politically incorrect Bush voters. That's going to be your coalition
that's what I said
at the end of the day. Yeah.
Well, that's what I said after I went to the Dissident Dialogues, which was kind of like fronted by Trigonometry, but like Winston Marshall and this guy Desch, I can't remember his last name, were like kind of the money behind it, but they were the face of it. Yeah, that's what I said. I said these are just basically old Bush neocons with a tech bro paint job.
Yep, that's it. And that's all it's going to be. And that's not a winning coalition. You cannot win elections with that group. That group is a dinosaur. I mean, they are becoming more and more irrelevant by the day. And that's who Donald Trump has thrown in with. The Mark Levin, Konstantin Kassin, basically the neocons.
Right.
So yeah, it's
They're the
done.
anti-woke
The damage is done.
neocons.
Yes, the anti-woke neocons. The damage is done. They're not going to be able to piece this back together. And that's good. That's a good thing. That is a positive. All right. B. Doyne says, I don't see what's so complicated. The bombs are for peace. The bombs will make Iran great. God loves bombs. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Furrows Queen says, fools are we if hate's the gate to peace. Go ahead, believe you are the chosen one. Is war the only way to peace? Lyrics from The Last Stop, DMB. This is my Daily Dave lyrics. That's a great song. I love that song. Eric Cousseau. Lindsey Graham was finally able to come. Thank you, Eric Cousseau. Gina and Heidi. I can't wait for Iran to take over Israel, and Ted Cruz will have to bless them. Thank you, Gina and Heidi. Appreciate that. Damn, sent that one too early. Easy mistake to make. You come at the Ayatollah, you best not miss, says Gina and Heidi. Eric Cousseau says, make a poll for what false flag will be used on us, domestic terror, sinking of a carrier, etc. Kurt says, I was watching Jimmy and Kurt earlier. Kurt thinks it'll be a cyber thing, and that could be. I love Hormuz chili, but without you have beans. Thank you. Keaton, you're killing me here. I'm straight for that Hormuz. Huh? See, Kevin liked it. Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate that very much. Get Up King says, bleeding, itchy, infected hemorrhoids to America. Thanks, Get Up King. Straight for this Hormuz. Keaton Weiss Clay over here. There you go. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Kevin G says, Douglas Murray has never been down the narrow through Hormuz. Good one. Yes. Kevin G, the U.S. doesn't need Israel, but since Scoop Jackson, most high positions in state have been occupied by Zionists. Israel controls the U.S. Kit's Corner says, have you guys heard of the Samson option? Yes, I talked about that. Seymour Hersh wrote the book in 1991 on Israel's collapsing and bringing every allied nation down with it. Absolutely. Free Shit 77, thanks for the $5. Chomsky and Zinn talked about public opinion. Ravid says, Russ, I'd love to know what books helped you develop such a clear, logical way of thinking. What logic books, or was that inherent? Were you born with a clear and logical way of thinking?
A lot of Kerouac. Carlos Castaneda.
There you go.
I'm totally kidding.
Are you saying Americans voted for who was going to take a fall for Israel? Say it isn't so. There you go. Thank you. Free shit. Appreciate that. Noah says Israeli intelligence and Intech is good. They sell to the other Arab countries. Also, they have nukes. Blame France. That's why they are still around. Matt H, thanks for the $10. Since when do we believe what presidential candidates have to say on the campaign trail? Good question, Matt H. Dead Cat Blues Band, thanks for the $5. I like that screen name. I think the B-2s were staged in Saudi. They apparently used the same fuel tank as the Honda Super Club moped. Andy Gardner says Dr. Strangelove, but as a documentary. That's right. Steve Lapointe, thanks for the $5. I'm sure Trump has all this hidden in his big 1,000 pages beautiful Israel First bill. Thank you, Steve Lapointe. Appreciate that. Eric Torres, there is a report that rehearsed this a year ago under Biden. What the fuck would Harris have done? Mimosa specials at brunch. Brat War Summer. I like that. Brat War Summer is good. David Santucci, the plan of getting Israel to attack Iran using the pretext of failed negotiations has been around since the 2009 Brookings Institute paper, Which Path to Persia. Thank you, David Santucci. Appreciate that very much. All right, folks, let's go to the Dems. Let's hear from the Dems.
Yeah. I go. We're doing India after that.
Yeah, we'll do that after this. Yeah.
All right. So the Democrats are covering themselves in glory like they do. So let's look at how the Democrats have been framing the Iran issue coming into this, because a lot of people are saying what Polling USA says here. Remember how people didn't want to vote for Harris because of Gaza and because she would apparently pull the United States into a war. Our friend Professor Zinkus responds, yes, and she would have. Here she is in October saying that Iran is the biggest threat to the U.S. That, coupled with her refusal to condition aid to Israel, let alone refusing to support an arms embargo, makes it pretty clear. Now, 60 Minutes, they're bitches about copyright.
So we're doing this audio only.
Foreign country do you consider to be our greatest adversary?
I think there's an obvious one in mind, which is Iran. Iran has American blood on their hands, okay? This attack on Israel, 200 ballistic missiles. What we need to do to ensure that Iran never achieves the ability to be a nuclear power, that is one of my highest priorities.
So if you have proof that Iran is building a nuclear weapon, would you take military action?
I'm not going to talk about hypotheticals at this moment.
See, so we would have gotten World War III anyway.
So yes, the deep state wanted it. The deep state was going to get it. You know,
although I do have to say, you know, I'm not a lesser evil guy necessarily, but I do have to say, if Trump is going to lead us to World War III, and you ask me, do I want World War III with or without CCOT? I'd take it without CCOT. I mean, I would. If we're going to do this anyway.
I guess if you're talking about a game of inches, I guess.
Yeah.
So what was Chucky the Shoom saying pretty recently? This is Peter Dow. For those who think Democrats are better, here's Chuck Schumer goading Trump into war with Iran.
To negotiating with the terrorist government of Iran. Trump's all over the lot. One day he sounds tough, the next day he's backing off. And now, all of a sudden, we find out that Witkoff and Rubio are negotiating a secret side deal with Iran. What kind of bull is this? They're going to sound tough in public and then have a side deal that lets Iran get away with everything? That's outrageous. We need to make that side deal public. Any side deal should be before Congress and, most importantly, the American people. If Taco Trump is already folding, the American public should know about it. No side deals.
Wow, what a strong statement.
No, not did you eat, but Jew eat.
What spastic moron did he have shoot that with the camera? It was zooming in and out, cutting in and out like crazy. Yeah.
I really like that film, Natural Born Killers. Can you do it like that?
Yeah,
can you do it in that style? Like that style, that general, like I think they call it verite.
Verite, yeah.
Hakeem Jeffries. This is last year. You might remember Iran and Israel had that very limited exchange. Iran, a sworn enemy of the United States, according to Hakeem Jeffries, has launched an unprecedented attack against our democratic ally, the state of Israel. I wonder why this country, where we whacked their democratically elected leader, Mossadegh, back in the 50s and installed a brutal autocratic Shah who tortured political dissidents, precipitating a revolution. I wonder why these people would have a sworn enmity towards us. I can't imagine. And then this country did a nuclear deal with us that the next president quickly went back on. I can't imagine why they would have antipathy towards us. America's commitment to Israel's security is ironclad and unbreakable. Iran will not succeed. We will stand with the people of Israel during this moment of significant challenge. Well, Chucky, let's see what he won. Oh, $1,742,105 from AIPAC. Woo!
Yeah, no, Jeffries is among the worst, which is why he ascended to the leadership despite having no talent, no charisma, no courage, no leadership abilities, nothing.
None. Jose did the alphabet game better than he did.
Yeah.
He did that shit while he was being dragged out.
While he was being dragged out.
That is not easy to keep focus. So this is very weird. And I used to think this was a nationwide thing. Then I found out it's regional. So you should know our ice cream trucks in this region are Mr. Softy trucks. And the characteristic jingle is do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. So for whatever reason, nobody said, hey, let's go somewhere without the ice cream truck jingle in the background for this when he shot it.
Authority to declare war against anyone. The power to declare war rests solely with the United States Congress.
I gotta see it.
The authority to declare war against anyone. The power to declare war rests solely with the United States Congress.
I'd like a chocolate with rainbow sprinkles, please.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay. So now all of a sudden he's into congressional war powers. Because again, like if this had happened under Harris, that's the real difference. If this had happened under Harris, MAGA would universally be losing their minds.
Right, exactly.
They'd all be talking about impeachment, and every single Democrat would be praising her resolve. And probably if it had been Harris, they'd be calling it sexism because she's a woman declaring war. And if it had been a man declaring war, especially a black woman, they have a problem with a black woman assuming the powers that all the white men that came before her assumed, right? Donald Trump promised to bring peace to the Middle East. He has failed to deliver on that promise. The risk of war is now dramatically increased, and I pray for the safety of our troops in the region who have been put in harm's way. Boilerplate, boilerplate. President Trump misled the country about his intentions, failed to seek congressional authorization for the use of military force, and risks American entanglement in a potentially disastrous war in the Middle East. First, the Trump administration bears the heavy burden of explaining to the American people why this military action was undertaken. Second, Congress must be fully and immediately briefed in a classified setting. Third, Donald Trump shoulders complete and total responsibility for any adverse consequences that flow from his unilateral military action. But hang on. Chuck Schumer, your leader in the Senate, was egging him on. What was that, about a month ago? He dropped
no
that video?
side deals.
Yeah, no side deals. No side deals. So, yeah, and here's Senator Kaine, who is, to his credit, legitimately pushing for Congress to exercise its powers. The American public is overwhelmingly opposed to the U.S. waging war on Iran. And the Israeli foreign minister admitted yesterday that Israeli bombing had set the Iranian nuclear program back at least 2 or 3 years. So what made Trump recklessly decide to rush and bomb today? Horrible judgment. I will push for all senators to vote on whether they are for this third idiotic Middle East war. Now, last I saw, it was only about 10 of them that signed up for it so far, if that.
You know, that guy could have been our president now if we had only voted for Hillary.
Oh,
maybe we screwed up.
Oh, yeah, we did screw up. David Hogg, I gotta say, I'm developing a soft spot for this kid, trying to, just finding out that even being the most mild, milquetoast, mainstream kind of Democrat who suggests that maybe, possibly, just maybe they should not be run by 92-year-olds with one foot in the grave, and maybe they should primary Democrats and let them prove themselves in a democratic process. That was too much. I don't want to alienate David Hogg. I know a lot of people hate him. This guy could be running around with a beret and an M16 to overthrow the government in 10 years at the rate we're going. So, give him some space. Give him some space to evolve. Any Democrat who supports this war with Iran needs to be primaried. Our generation grew up going through 2 multi-trillion-dollar wars we should never have been involved in. We are not fucking going back to that. If you think this is a good idea, read a history book. See, here's what I'm telling you, man. This kid could get radicalized. Give him room. Give him room. It is probably for expressing views like that we arrived at this outcome. DNC elects vice chair to replace David Hogg as Democratic Party rift rages on. They didn't like that kind of talk. So you might remember the DNC, in their wisdom and demonstrating they learned absolutely freaking nothing, thought this would be an awesome panel to start a conversation with young men with. Olivia Juliana, Richard Hanania, and Mika Irfan. This got so mocked, they canceled it before it ever happened. This live stream never actually took place. Just this image launched 1,000 mocking memes, and they said, you know what? We better just not do this. Here's Richard Hanania, the guy they wanted on that panel. What you've just seen is a masterclass in the art of the deal. Go Dems. Go Dems. To be fair, that guy, from what I understand, I haven't confirmed this, he was actually a contributor to Project 2025. But all the more so, why would the Democrats have this guy on a panel to reach out to young Democrats? But Michael Van Jones probably took the cake, as Michael Tracy tweeted out. CNN superstar Van Jones says he was just in the Holy Land recently, and it's time for progressives to get on board with bombing Iran. Listen, man, there are some filthy, filthy whores in this business. If we had awards, Van Jones would probably win most years if we had awards for biggest media whore. But this one, he kind of outdid himself.
Some time in some room. I was also in the Holy Land very recently. I think progressives underestimate how dangerous Iran is. Iran is not a normal country. Normal countries don't blind women because they showed some hair. They don't empower little gangs and proxies to surround a country and fire rockets and rape people. So Iran, the two things are clear. The what, they cannot have a bomb, and the why, because they say death to America, death to Israel, and death to all the Jews. One of those should offend you if you're progressives. At least one should offend you. And so the question, though, is the who and the how. Is Israel going to take out this nuclear capacity by dropping people there who blow it up? Or is America going to take it out by dropping a bomb that blows it up? But the what and the why are clear, and I think progressives should get on board with that. We cannot have a nuclear-armed Iran. I was in the region. You were in the region. This is a very dangerous power that cannot get a nuclear weapon.
All right. Now, Van Jones, if you go back in the day, like, he was like a real radical. So there is...
He was kicked out of the Obama administration because he was the 9/11 truth guy.
There is absolutely no way he believes a freaking word that he just said.
No.
Now, listen. I don't claim to be an expert on Iran, and I would not say, oh no, Iran is a liberal paradise on the Western model. I think I could say with some confidence that the caricature that we get of Iran is BS. And I say that with some confidence based on a few data points. One, you can look this up. I did. It has the largest Jewish population in the Middle East outside of Israel. How is that possible? How is that possible if they are virulently anti-Jewish and not anti-Zionist? I met rabbis here in New York who have traveled to Iran multiple times. And they say they're treated very well. Something that is very indicative to me that they could not be what is being described by Van Jones there. There's an International Association of Tour Guides, and they have an annual conference. They had it a few years ago in Iran. Now, if you know tour guides and the kind of people who are tour guides, they tend to be kind of on the spectrum, liberal-oriented, kind of theater kid vibe. Those people would not last 5 minutes in a country like what Van Jones just described. There is no way that you could have a tour guide convention in that country if it were actually that repressive. Also, I've seen a lot of videos taken on the street in Iran where women have their hair showing. Now, again, I'm not going to say it's some liberal Western paradise, but this is a grotesque caricature, I think we can say with some confidence. Even if it were not, we just sold Saudi Arabia, $400 million in weapons? So that has nothing to do with it anyway. But just saying, for Van Jones, who almost certainly knows better, to go on CNN and whore himself out as the resident progressive, giving them, a supposedly progressive cover for these deep state agendas. Really, really, really just disgusting and disgraceful what he's willing to do. I will probably do this during the week. A lot of stories have recently broken because there's going to be like a breakup with Warner Brothers and CNN, like the company is splitting. And apparently they are talking about cutting like 70% of the staff at CNN. And they're talking about how like the salaries are ridiculous. It's like Anderson Cooper gets like 21 million and Katie Collins gets like, I think like 20% of that. She gets maybe 4 million a year. And her ratings are about the same. So they're actually starting to say, hey, well, why this is a money losing business. Like, why are we paying this? I mean, really, if you look at this, if you look at how companies like CNN function, it's really an argument for the idea that a lot of these institutions are really about making work for the children of elites. Because if they were thinking in business terms, it's kind of obvious you don't need all these people for the kind of thing they're doing, and that you don't need to pay what they're paying for the kinds of ratings they're getting. So what do they do it for? It's a make work program for the children of elites. I think that's true of a lot of institutions like that. Senator Young Frankenstein there says, I've long maintained this was the correct move by POTUS. Iran is the world's leading sponsor of terrorism and cannot have nuclear weapons. I'm grateful for and salute the finest military in the world. For those who are listening at home, we are, of course, referring to Senator Fetterman. So AOC kind of set off a firestorm with this one. The president's disastrous decision to bomb Iran without authorization is a grave violation of the Constitution and congressional war powers. He has impulsively risked launching a war that may ensnare us for generations. It is absolutely and clearly grounds for impeachment. In the interest of full disclosure, we do some consulting with AOC. She did talk to Keaton before tweeting this out, and he was very persuasive about the case for impeachment. So Chris Cuomo here. Impeachment, aside from the irony that AOC and MAGA pod bros are only ones saying this. I don't know, man. I'm not AOC and I'm not a MAGA pod bro, and I'm saying this. I think a lot of people are saying this, Chris. When will the left learn you can't impeach your way to victory? And how would AOC stop the regime from getting nukes? Well, you guys didn't worry about stopping the Israeli regime from getting nukes, did you? By the way, how's your grandmother killing rapist brother doing in the mayor's race there, Chris? Marjorie Taylor Greene quote tweeted it. Shut up, you pathetic little hypocrite. You fully supported our military and IC running the proxy war against Russia in Ukraine. And you voted to fund the Ukraine war under your president with dementia. You don't get to play anti-war and moral outrage anymore. You know what? That's fair. That's fair. But while we're talking about hypocrisy, 60 members of Congress have signed on to efforts against Trump-Vance administration's war on Iran. Let's find Marjorie Taylor Greene's name there. Oh.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
not there.
You're not there. Yeah.
Looks like only that. You know what that sounds like? That sounds like hypocrisy.
Yeah.
That sounds like hypocrisy. It's pretty funny to call her out for hypocrisy when you won't even sign on to this war powers resolution because you're too afraid to get on the wrong side of daddy. You know, so, I mean, everything she said there is right, but physician, heal thyself.
Well, yeah, you're just as afraid of Donald Trump as you say AOC was afraid of Joe Biden. Yeah. And as for Van Jones, I just have to say, you know, look, Max Blumenthal was there in Iran with his wife, Anya Parampil, recently. It doesn't matter. I'm not interested in hearing about their society.
Sure.
Not interested. Not interested. The idea, they're not a normal country. What about, so a normal country is a country that drops 2,000-pound bombs on babies?
Right.
That's a normal country? That's Israel?
Normal. Right.
You speak at the Israel March? I mean, that's neither here nor there. It's neither here nor there. The bottom line is they're no threat to us. They are no threat to us.
That celebrates its annual version of the 4th of July by launching a pogrom against the Palestinian section of the city.
Yeah. No, right. That's a normal country. Jerusalem Day. Yeah, no, it's pretty disgraceful. And so there's your Democrat roundup reaction to this. Hey, I'm glad AOC says this is an impeachable offense. It is. And there needs to be organization around that. Absolutely. 100%. Jeffries, totally worthless. Schumer, totally worthless. Almost all of them completely worthless. At the end of the day, AOC is probably worthless too. But you do have to get everybody organized around impeachment
you need
and
to
around this war powers
set those
resolution.
things aside when you have a goal.
Yeah, that's it. This is the goal. The war powers resolution and, of course, the impeachment of Trump. Those have to be the two organizing goals. 100%. All right. Let's see here. Katrina Greshner, thanks for the $10. Jillian M. opined on her take about the lack of women's rights on Iran while positively claiming that our allies, the Saudis, are glad that Iran was attacked. I nominate her useless idiot of the year. Yep, that makes sense. Teresa's Dolls and Vintage, big love to do dissidents from Ireland. Free Palestine, end war, impeach Trump. Thank you. Chipmunk, thanks to the $4.99. Regime change war in Iran is seriously going to dampen the mood at my 4th of July barbecue. What's the IRS form for writing off unused plastic cutlery? Thank you. Artie Blarty Fart Blast, thanks to the $7.99. If there was no AIPAC, the anti-Semites would have to invent AIPAC. David Santucci, hey Russ, is one of your action figures humping David's leg?
You know what that is. That is my They Live action figure.
Oh, there you go. Cool. Very cool.
She's humping David's leg.
Jolly Man, the big boy, says, I don't care if it's a picture of Ted Cruz dressed as a baby. Just show us the pictures that are being used as blackmail so we can avoid going to war. Yeah, exactly. I think we can all rally around that as well. Like, hey, just tell Israel to go fuck themselves and all be forgiven. I'm convinced that social media, says Lady B, is pushing anti-Semitism through algorithms. TikTok censors virtually everything other than Hitler supporters. It's so scary. Something changed after this shutdown. Interesting. Victor Shakopoulos, Keaton, I was referring to that video with Duck Lips Blonde, who Russ described as cute, repeating their defending Iran. Seems like you missed my joke. Turned out better for you, though. Here's $1 more. All right, thank you, Victor. Let's have a cowbell for Ken Texican. Thanks for the $50, Ken Texican. Appreciate that very much. Says, my donation as a friend to Jews for Impeachment. Thank you, Ken Texican. Oh, Jake is here. Jake was a little late tonight, but Jake made it. Shout out to Jake in the booth. Thanks very much, Jake, of course. Master Yoda, why should the U.S. fund war crimes committed by Israel while American families suffer? Join the American Communist Party because the future belongs to the working class. I am Yoda. Will Oliver Anthony, the rich man north of Richmond guy, make an anti-war song? No, he'll just do another song about how the real problem is obese people using welfare to buy fudge rounds. Thank you.
Why the hell you eating those ring dings?
That's right. Yesterday night, I dreamt of an awkwardly drawn-out Keaton Russ and Daryl group hug, a Weiss Dobular Cooper powwow. Inspiring times. Thank you. EO Shush says the biggest threat to Israel isn't Iran or the Middle East. It's the American people waking up to their influence over our government. I could see Bibi helping Trump do an authoritarian takeover via AIPAC. Thank you. Victor Shakopoulos is the notion that a group of psychotic Jews control the U.S. government while USA dominates the rest of the world anti-Semitic or realistic, or is a bit like men control the world and women control men. EO Shush, some like we saw in Argentina and El Salvador, austerity and attacking the judicial system, jailing opponents. Have you noticed the love these presidents show Israel? Yes, indeed. Absolutely. John M. in Minnesota, how stupid do they think we are? Basically, they're running back the WMD but without the elaborate setup. By the way, we're pretty stupid. Thank you, John. Articus Rex, Putin did a press briefing a few days ago, said he had offered Iran joint air defense projects to deter missile attacks, but Iran had declined. Apparently, Iran was like, nah, bro, I got this. Thank you. 007 Angelo said, you just know Bibi liked the handy Trump gave him. Must look bigger in Trump's little hands. Our whole government gets their turn in pleasing Bibi. This country is screwed. Thank you, 007 Angelo. Appreciate that very much. Louise Brooks says there was a DOD memo last year, tabletop exercise by September to work out logistics of drafting $300K to $1 million. I can get my student loans forgiven in 400 days. We'll see if I last that long. Thank you, Louise. Appreciate that very much. And keep us posted, of course. Okay, all right. So we're going to take a slight game break. We got another segment to do after this, but we have Russell's long-awaited India travelogue, Volume 2, before the final segment of the night. And then we are going to Rumble for a Q&A tonight, folks, after the show. So make sure you stick around for that.
Yeah, it only took me like 4 months to do part 2. I will try to tighten it up. This will probably wind up being like 6 or 7 parts. I'm going to try to get it done by the end of the summer, if possible.
All right, so this is Russell's travelogues to India. We will full screen this, and we'll be back. It's about 11 minutes long, and we'll be back with the remainder of the show after this.
In Costa Rica, years ago in Costa Rica, I took a long bus ride to a small town where I had to get by on my beginner Spanish because it wasn't the kind of place the tourists go. They were having a rodeo, and people who couldn't afford the price of a seat crowded in under the bleachers to watch through the gaps in the wood slats that had been thrown together in the preceding days to make a temporary arena. Gosh, I thought, they'd never let you do that in the U.S. Fire marshal would throw the book at you. Later, when the first few men jumped into the ring, I assumed they were mounting a rescue. But it wasn't about rescuing anybody. With the release of every furious bull, dozens of men, always men, never women, would jump down to taunt and tease them. Some were gored and trampled, although none too severely to walk away. When that happened, they made a point of pumping a fist to the crowd as they limped back to the stands, in case any doubt of their exceptional machismo remained. It was the custom. And that's when I said, of course, you can't sue anybody here. Assumed risk is the whole of the law. That's what I was thinking about as I hung out the open doors of a speeding train, taking in the sights and the warm, fragrant air of the Indian countryside. I thought, they'd never let you do this in a million years in America. And I considered all the rare pleasures we miss out on in order to keep our overproduced elites employed writing and enforcing rules that nobody asked for.
Hello, dissidents. What I like when you get outside of America is you have a concept called assumed risk. So, for example, in America, they would never just kind of leave the doors hanging open on a speeding train and leave it up to you whether you want to just hang out and take the risk. But in India, you can do this, right? Right. The further out you go, the more of a novelty you become. There were people who had never seen a white person curiously observing us. Some of them would shyly approach and gesture for a selfie. I asked Bhupesh how they could never have seen a European with tourists passing through semi-regularly. He explained they were villagers making a once-in-a-lifetime journey to the holy cities. Many had never been away from home. Here and there, desiccated barefoot figures, both male and female, appeared next to the tracks, sometimes working, sometimes squatting in the dirt or laying down. I spent a long time watching 4 people carry a whole tree across a field, wondering why they were doing it, and trying to imagine as best I could living the kind of life where your day might take that kind of turn. Hey, wake up! We have a tree to carry. But the whole scene was so opaque to me and so far removed from my experience, I might as well have tried to deduce the whys and wherefores of a beam of light. We arrived at Jaisalmer in the middle of the night,
and waited by the side of the tracks while Bupesh negotiated for a fleet of motorized rickshaws. As we approached the ancient fort rising out of the dirty town that had grown up around it, he told us we were staying there. I laughed, assuming he was joking. Then we rode through the gates.
Hey, you aren't kidding. We are going into the fort. All right, so this is a good time. So somebody suggested that because my name is Russell, I need to be afraid of the Russell Viper.
Jackasses, all of them.
So why is that? Why do I not need to fear the Russell Viper?
Because snakes are in hibernation at the moment. It's winters, and they come out only during the summers, which is from May onwards.
In the manner of Calvino's Invisible Cities, whose verses came to me often throughout the trip, what can I tell you about Jaisalmer? Can I tell you that its fort is carved from gentle sandstone? Or that ancient cannonballs still rest atop some of its 99 parapets? That once you've passed its 4 gates, you'll find yourself inside an open market square where during the daytime, merchants, fruit sellers, currency traders, and sitar players all vie for the rupees of the tourists as they come and go from their hotels? Or that the fort has been standing with later additions since 1156, and that its founding family ruled here until independence in 1947? Or that it was a main hub of the camel caravan routes for centuries, with its strategic position at the edge of the desert, and that it has become relevant again in recent times, with the Pakistani border only 100 miles away? Or that all its winding lanes lead to a mystery and a wonder? This temple, this cannon, this view, these carvings, the whole place is like a dream, beautiful and unreal. Sipping chai in the morning at one of the many cafes built into the towers with a full desert view. It's easy to imagine what it must have been like to watch a line of merchants come over the horizon, weighed down with spices and silks. Our hotel had been a barracks, and it had the feel of a place that was thrown together with whatever came to hand. Simple steps, worn floors, rusty locks. It still had a wood-burning stove heating the water in the rooms. In the mornings, the birds would kick up a racket, cooing and scratching at the timbers. I'd throw open the medieval window carved into the wall and look out over the rooftops. That first sunrise, I climbed up to the cafe and took pictures, eagerly anticipating my first Western-style breakfast in several days. On the train, we ate like Indians, there not being enough Europeans traveling these routes for anyone to bother making the kind of syrupy, sweet, sticky, salty combos we prefer. As an American victim of Edward Bernays' successful campaign to sell the farm breakfast to an urbanized nation of office workers who have been dying of the results ever since, this was particularly hard on me, and I was desperate for a cup of joe and an omelet, preferably with a big stack of pancakes. I must make a confession. It had honestly never occurred to me that the whole idea of having a distinct type of food at different times of the day was not a universal concept. I assumed that Indian breakfasts would be milder than Indian dinners. They are not. By the third day, I could almost feel my stomach lining dissolve. After breakfast, Bhupesh took us on a tour of the main sites. The Ukraine war was less than a year old then, so naturally I clowned on the Indian fondness for putting swastikas everywhere. It's like I've been saying, the Ukrainians are not Nazis, they're mystics. It's this kind of thing, along with my need for coffee and pancakes, that made me such a joy to my companions. In my defense, I'm an excellent tipper. The way I see it, if you're going to be an asshole, the least you can do is pay extra. We worked our way up to the top of the fort, passing the many free-roaming cows, along with the dogs who were even friendlier than in Delhi, and the havelis, or mansions, with their intricate hand-carved scroll work covering the walls, pediments, and doorways, now mostly converted to hotels and museums. To paraphrase Captain Willard, the whole scene really put the zap on my head. At the highest point, a crowd gathered for selfies and the view. Outside the walls in the town, there were even more cows eating from the trash and lazing about. They're mellow, but you do have to be careful around them. They can throw their heads unpredictably, usually to scatter the flies, and those horns aren't for show. Bhupesh got stuck at one point, but it didn't break the skin. Occasionally, you'll find yourself having to negotiate a narrow alley with a cow on one side, a motorcycle on the other, and you in between. That's when you just have to kiss it up to God, as my Catholic friends growing up used to say, and hope that you don't get gored or run over trying to get to the other side. There was a bang shop, but I didn't sample their wares. Getting high here seemed like a good way to end up starring in an episode of Locked Up Abroad. And besides, it was likely to be one of those paranoid Peter Fonda kind of trips where you wake up naked in a cemetery. On the second day, we rode out to the desert for a ride on a camel train and a night out under the stars.
My camel's name is Johnny Walker. Hopefully he's not a drunk.
Buffalo soldier, bad luck to India. Rajasthan to bye.
Are there a lot of Bob Marley fans in this town?
Yeah.
A lot of Bob Marley fans in that town. All right. Excellent. Well, that was part 2, the long way to India travelogue part 2.
Yes. Put a lot of time, a lot of love into that. I hope you all enjoyed that. That was definitely part of my thinking when I shot all this. Was I really wanted to show people what I saw. A lot of people don't get that opportunity to go see a place like that, and I know they're curious about it. So, those are my observations. But India, one of the really fascinating things about it, if you're coming from the West, you'll never understand it, man, if you're not from there. Like, there's so many levels of cultural complexity and so much history. It's like Bhupesh, the guide, he actually said every 20 miles he could see an ethnic difference.
Right.
Like turbans, like the color, the style indicate religion and affiliation. Like, there's just so many layers. For somebody who's never been to a non-Western culture, I had never been to even South America, Central America, because of the colonization. It's very Western inflected. To go to a place like that with completely different assumptions and rituals and even body language being different, gestures being different, really, really interesting experience. So, all that to say, I feel like I'm catching what I can. These are my reflections, but I don't represent it in any way as like, this is what India is. This is what India was to me.
There you go. All right. Well, part 3 will be coming up in due time. All right, folks. We're going to continue on with the program. First, a word from 1775 Coffee. If you still haven't tried 1775 Coffee, now's your shot. The 1775 starter kit just dropped, only 1,000 units. So you're getting the bold dark roast that hits harder than a CNN fact check, the smooth medium roast, and the Vitality mushroom coffee for clean energy and laser focus with no crash. All single origin, small batch, toxin-free, and mold-free. Plus, you're also getting a gold spoon clip because freedom isn't scooped with plastic, a frother strong enough to stir up your coffee and your mother-in-law's political opinions, and, of course, a black 1775 tumbler that says, I don't take life advice or caffeine from a woke sea witch. That's $170 worth of coffee and gear, yours for just $99. This is a limited edition set for those who have been watching 1775 blow up on Rumble, wondering if it's actually worth it. Spoiler, it is. So go to 1775coffee.com/studio and grab your starter kit before they're gone. Bold beans, clean fuel, and a morning routine that stands for something. Just like Rumble does, start your day with coffee that backs what you believe. All righty. Okay, let's go to some super chats here. Wasim Garani says, don't worry, guys, regarding Jews being a shame similar to the Germans. There will be a historian named Daryl Cooperstein to say Bibi was misunderstood. That's right. Good one. The Yuppies, thanks for the $10. I agree, Israel has a lot of sway over our politicians. Trump took $250 million from Israeli-tied interest groups. But I also think Israel is our excuse for keeping the region unstable. That is true. That is true. It goes both ways in that respect. Alan Paulson says, I'm in California and would donate to Massie and any politician against AIPAC. Thank you, Alan. Good point. Texas Grown, thanks for the $5. I am calling Iran hourly. Told them please settle before they move Israelis to America. Thank you, Texas Grown. Skelvin Knight, thanks for the $20. Get out of America means nothing. The reach of this sickness is everywhere unless you want to live in a straw hut in Fiji. We need to stand up and stand together. Good point. Robert McCoy, thanks for the $10 super sticker. Appreciate that. Funbad says, I hope we also never forget Gaza as Trump continues his illegal war with Bibi on Iran. Absolutely. Eric Torres, thanks for the $5. Is anyone really messing with Pakistan? Why? They have nukes. Exactly. Charles H., I think Operation Midnight Hammer is a gay porn. There you go. David Santucci says,
it is a very suggestive name, isn't it?
Indeed. Yes, it is. Check out a certain physicist, says David Santucci, who can't be named for some reason on why he doesn't think the thingies they use will work. TLDR, properly shaped surfaces can deflect them. Eric Torres, thanks for the $5. When I hear Meghan McCain, I picture Tim Dillon in drag. If you know, you know. Yeah, I get that. FU, thanks for the $10. No such thing as peace with Zionist Kufi Colony, USA. French Laundry, thanks to the $4.99. Paul Green Dennis says neocons are the coalition of madness. Darren Brown, thanks for the $75, Darren. Let's have a cowbell. Appreciate that, Darren. Thank you very much. You guys are awesome. Shout out from San Diego. Any book recommendations? Well, yeah, I already featured it on the show, but this one, Whitney Webb, United States, One Nation, Under Blackmail, Volume 1, that gets to why, despite Israel being such a liability, we cannot shake them. So I would definitely, that at least lays the groundwork for that. I mean, the 2-volume book is about Epstein and stuff, but she makes a very compelling case. So I definitely recommend that book from Whitney Webb, Darren. It's called One Nation Under Blackmail. Apparently they print these on demand because I ordered this on March 27th and they printed it on March 28th. It actually shows you the date that they print them, and they get them to you very quickly. So it's a great operation. So you can find that. JB,
I like A Clockwork Orange.
There you go. Yes. I cannot wait to see the aid package Congress will sneak in for Israel. I'm guessing $75 billion plus, the biggest, most beautiful aid package. Chad Bartell says, but Van Jones is being there. You can trust him. That's right. Thank you, Chad Bartell. Appreciate that very much. All right, folks, we got a couple more. These are quick, and then we're going to head over to Rumble for the Q&A. But, you know, when we interviewed Michael Tracy, I remember him having just written an article fairly recently at the time, litigating whether the term neocon should be retired, because at this point, what does that word even mean? And that was long before these events unfolded. But if John Bolton's not a neocon, who is? And John Bolton took to the Sunday shows to take a victory lap. He is made very happy. As Jeremy Scahill points out, John Bolton, who Trump denounced in his first term as a warmonger when he fired him, heaps praise on Trump for, wait for it, being a warmonger. That's right.
Were you surprised that President Trump took such decisive action?
Well, let me say this unequivocally. I think President Trump made the right decision for America to attack Iran's nuclear weapons program. And I think we're on the verge of potentially seeing regime change in Iran as part of that. I think this is a huge change in the Middle East. It was a decisive action. It was the right thing to do. I thought somebody should do it for a long time, but better late than never.
These guys were sworn enemies. Sworn enemies. Trump hired him, and then he says, I regret hiring him. He's a warmonger. He wants to bomb everyone, everywhere. He's crazy. Yeah. Look who has the most influence. At the end of the day, John Bolton there.
When I got the news, it's the first time I've made love to my wife without Viagra in 12 years.
Very, very pleased with Donald Trump, despite their past differences. So for all of this litigating, hey, what's the wedge between the MAGA movement and the neocons? Well, apparently there is one. You're just on the wrong side of it if you are the anti-war MAGA contingent. But it gets worse. It gets worse, folks. Neocon Nikki Haley, well done, congratulates Trump on his successful strike on Iranian nuclear facilities. I remember Nikki Haley running against Donald Trump, and I remember a lot of people, including myself, trashing Nikki Haley for representing the old, defunct George W. Bush neoconservative wing of the Republican Party. And I come to regret having thought there was any distinction there. So much so that I thought I would tweet out, wow, it's a good thing MAGA prevailed in the 2024 Republican primary and not the neocons, not those neocons. Look at this. It gets worse than that. David Frum, the guy who wrote the Axis of Evil speech, George W. Bush speechwriter turned Never Trump Republican, Lincoln Project adjacent, Atlantic editor. Iran had it coming. If the war launched by the rulers of Iran has brought only defeat and humiliation to their country, that does not make those rulers victims of anyone else's aggression. A failed aggressor is still the aggressor. Derek Brose says, turns out a lot of MAGA are just neocons 2.0. That's right. Michael Tracy says, remember when Mike Waltz was supposedly fired because he was too neocon and collaborative with Israel? Yes, indeed. This is the biggest bait and switch in the modern era. There's nothing even comes close. Not even the Obama hope and change turn city group.
I mean that was pretty bad because of the historical moment where the economy crashed and he literally bailed out the bankers and prosecuted homeowners.
It was very
pretty
bad.
It's pretty bad bait and switch.
But I would argue it wasn't nearly the bait and switch because Barack Obama didn't run on justice for the bankers. He didn't run on explicitly populist themes. Barack Obama ran a very vague campaign based on charisma and looking good and Bruce Springsteen songs at rallies and nice speeches and on representation, right? I mean, he ran on pretty amorphous principles. Yeah. Trump was very specific. From the time he came down the escalator, one of the planks of MAGA was no more regime change wars, no more endless wars, no new wars. I'm going to keep you out of wars. It's not our business. America first. Like, it was as explicit as it could have possibly been. And then to turn around, and not only that, he vanquished the neocons in both primaries in 2016. Right. Don't forget, Jeb Bush, can't get more neocon than that. He was the front runner going into 2016. He was the favorite to win.
We're still making fun of him in every clip.
Yeah, in every single clip we make fun of Jeb Bush. Right. And then in 2020, the most formidable challenger to him was neocon Nikki Haley. Like, at every point, he made it clear that he was distinguishing himself and his agenda from theirs. And now, to have fucking John Bolton praise you the day after the strike, and before Donald Trump tweeted out, hey, maybe regime change is not so bad after all, Bolton comes out Sunday morning and says, we're going to have regime change. This is fantastic. I'm glad this happened. Then you have Nikki Haley, the person you ran against, give you a heart and an American flag emoji. I'm sorry. MAGA is the biggest scam in modern political history. The Obama thing is a close second because of the moment and the opportunity and the wasted opportunity. Nothing touches this, man. I'm sorry. Nothing touches this.
Yeah, you're
Nothing
probably
touches
right.
this. To turn around and start a war with Iran.
Yeah. Within months.
After 10 years.
Within months.
You campaign as an anti-war candidate / president for 10 years. And within 5 months of your second term, we're at war with Iran?
If you remember,
that takes the cake. That takes the cake. You are the biggest suckers of them all. Sorry to tell you.
Last week, I dropped that clip and I disclaimed it as AI. It wasn't actually AI. It was Trump talking about Obama. I assumed it was AI. That was not an AI clip. I'm saying, he's a terrible prey. He doesn't know how to negotiate. He'll get us into a war with Iran. That was real.
Yep. Yeah.
I assumed that was an AI clip because he doesn't actually say Obama in it. So
right.
I thought it was just somebody making fun of him. No, man, he really said that. That clip is from like 2012.
Wow. Yep. Really pathetic stuff. So the neocons win again. All right, Jake, can we have a scroll, please? The patron scroll, if you can. Thank you, sir, very much for that. All right. Hey, folks, if you like what we do and you want to help us do more of it, the best way you can do that is to become a member at dudissidents.com/Patreon, dudissidents.com/Substack, or dudissidents.com/locals. For just $5 a month, you get your name up in lights here on the patron scroll. You also get call-in access to our post-show Q&As every Sunday night, which, hey, it is Sunday, and so make sure that you join us for the post-show Q&A over on Rumble immediately following the conclusion, of the broadcast. You also get full ad-free replays of every live stream emailed to you the day after they air. So if you miss a stream or you only catch part of it and you don't want to watch it back with ad interruptions, you can catch it the next day. We email you a video link where you can watch it ad-free, in full, uncensored, and uncut. You also get post-game streams. So we're going to be doing a post-game probably this week, probably Thursday show. We'll do a post-game where we'll do the final 2 segments of the main show at a special Rumble link exclusively for members, and then open it up to calls afterwards. And you get Film Club live streams where we do interactive presentations on various politically relevant films. I think A Boy and His Dog has to be this one coming up. I think that should be it. That's a great movie. I think we should do that one. That'll be fun.
I didn't know you've seen it. You've seen A Boy and His Dog?
It's a great. Well, it's on YouTube, so I just caught it. I watched it because it's.
You just watched it?
Yeah. That would be great. I would love that one, and it's kind of appropriate. I would say.
It's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorites.
Let's do it. So yeah, you get all that for just $5 a month.
We're gonna have to blur out the boobies though.
Yeah, you can blur that out. That's not a problem. So folks, all that for just $5 a month. It really helps us out tremendously. So please become a member if you can. DoDissidents.com/Patreon, Substack, or Locals. You guys are the backbone of the show, and we thank you, of course, for your support. Eric Rousseau says Libyan model, North Korean model, or Israeli model. There you go. Liddy B, we should just call the Samson option a self-destruct button. Thank you. Atticus Rex says Medvedev, a top aide of Putin, wrote on X this morning a number of countries are ready to directly supply Iran with their own nuclear warheads. Yeah, no, this is going to be absolutely horrible. Axel the Dissident, send Mike Rappaport out there. They can use more cold sore constituents. Thank you. Got that one already? Oh, sorry, Jake. I think we repeated some of these. Here we go. Caroline Levitt said on X, Chuck Schumer was notified beforehand and supported the strike. That doesn't
surprise me at all.
Have you heard a Boom Boom Tel Aviv song yet? This hit song written by a racist is going viral. I have not seen that.
I saw that.
Russell, that perennial award celebrating undignified sleaze should be named after Van Jones, much like the Baseball Writers Association of America has its annual Cy Young Award for MLB pitchers. There you go.
Seriously.
Vito says, great show. Love to all my dissident comrades. Cancer sucks. You guys rock. Thank you, Vito.
Thank you,
very
Vito.
much for that. Which Shigo says, historically, when American politicians and corporate media suddenly care about women's rights in a Middle Eastern country, those women are about to get bombed. Good point, Which Shigo. Appreciate that. All right. Jake, can you do me a favor and just clear the queue out, everything above progressive lefty there, just so I'm up to date? Because I didn't realize you would join, so I copied them over, and I think you copied some of them over, so we doubled some of them up. Thank you. Appreciate that, sir. Lovey Dovey, thanks for the $49.99 from Lovey Dovey. Let's have a cowbell. What should we do? Call your Congress or Senate rep and voice your disagreement. What are your thoughts? Yes, call them. Tell them to vote for the War Powers Resolution and to vote to impeach Donald Trump. Yes, I do think that is what we should be organizing around right now. And I know there are people who are going to say, well, what's the point of that? The point of that is you have to set precedents and you have to take advantage of moments where the overwhelming majority of the public are on your side of an extremely dire issue. And that is the case right now. So I think that's hugely important. Dixon Sider says, Russell got here late. Is that Mexico you are in? No, that is India.
It
was
he's
Costa
talking
Rica
about the
at the
beginning. That was Costa Rica.
Beginning was Costa Rica. Lovey Dovey, thanks for the $99.99. Wow, look at that. Big cowbell for Lovey Dovey. He says, wow, Russell's Travels. There you go. Beautiful. Thank you for that. That's awesome. Thank you for that generous donation. Appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
Very much. All right, folks, we have one more segment. I know it's late, but I figure with all this World War III news, we have an opportunity, perhaps one of the final opportunities we'll ever have to end on a positive note. And so I think we should take advantage of that because, of course, Mahmoud Khalil was ordered released by a federal judge, and released he was. So upon being released, here is his first interview given roadside in Gina, Louisiana, where he was being detained in an ICE facility. Let's play this.
Taken 3 months. This shouldn't have taken 3 months. I leave some incredible men behind me, over 1,000 people in a place where they shouldn't have been, in that place, in the first place. I hope the next time that I will be in Gina is to actually visit this museum that's a testimony on America's racist policies against immigrants. The hundreds of men who I left behind me shouldn't be there in the first place. The Trump administration are doing their best to dehumanize everyone here. Whether you are a U.S. citizen, an immigrant, or just a person on this land, doesn't mean that you are less of a human.
What's the first thing you'll do when you get home tonight?
Just hug my wife and son. As simple as that. It's not
his son, for those who haven't followed this closely, was born while he was in detention. So he got to spend a very brief period of time with him at the ICE jail, but he was not around for the birth of his son.
Get back. I did not actually spend time with my son. The only time I spent my son was in a specified 1 hour limit that the government had imposed on us. So that means that now I can actually hug him and Noor, my wife, without looking at the clock. That now it's 59 minutes and they have to give him back to his mom, and then an ICE officer is coming to escort me out. That what actually.
What's your message to all other immigrants in this country today?
No one is illegal. No human is illegal. That's the message. The message is justice will prevail. No matter what this administration may try to portraying that immigrants are, whether criminals or any of that, trying to do all of this now. This simply is not true, and just to keep the fight against this administration.
Mahmoud, you spent 3 months inside that detention center, as you say, with
Spent 104 days, so more than 3 months.
Reflecting on that time, has it changed you as a person and your politics as well?
Absolutely. I mean, the moment you enter this facility, your rights leave you behind. So once you enter there, you see a different reality, just a different reality about this country that supposedly champions human rights and liberty and justice. But once you cross literally that door, you see the opposite side of what actually happening on this country under just the eyes of everyone. But I will leave it here. Thank you so much, everyone. And again, I will be able to give more comments in New York, but thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care. Thank
you. All right.
Based.
Yes, absolutely. And then he made his way from Gina, Louisiana to Houston, where he boarded a plane, and then he touched ground in Newark, New Jersey. So Mahmoud Khalil returns to New York after months in detention. Mahmoud Khalil walked through a nondescript door into a Newark airport lobby on Saturday. His wife to his left, a congresswoman to his right, that was AOC, made sure she found the camera there, and the stroller in front of him. His fist was raised, and he could not stop smiling.
This guy's so courageous that after 104 days in that jail, he flew into the Newark airport.
Yes, that's right. Flew into Newark. That's right. Nothing can stop him. Mr. Khalil, a Columbia University graduate and legal permanent resident, had spent more than 3 months detained by the Trump administration, which said he had enabled the spread of anti-Semitism and sought to deport him. But his lawyers had denied the accusations of anti-Semitism and had protested his detention as unconstitutional retaliation for free speech. On Friday, a judge ordered him released on bail. When Mr. Khalil emerged at the Newark airport with his wife, Dr. Noor Abdallah, and Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York, he was quickly surrounded by roughly 50 supporters, reporters, lawyers, and relatives. Mr. Khalil briefly addressed the crowd, saying he would immediately resume his outspoken work on behalf of Palestinian rights, speech he said that should be celebrated rather than punished. Asked about a message for the Trump administration, he said, "Just the fact that I am here sends a message." So here is the moment when he emerged before the crowd at the airport.
Right back. No, so you gotta stay back.
And here is some footage from CNN where we catch a glimpse of his brief remarks at the airport.
Even if they would kill me, I would still speak up for Palestine. Again, I just want to go back and just continue the work that I was already doing, advocating for Palestinian rights, a speech that should actually be celebrated rather than punished.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Brave guy. Asked for comment, a spokeswoman for the Homeland Security Department referred to its comment from Friday, which described the judge who released Mr. Khalil, Michael E. Farbiars, as a rogue judge. The Trump administration acted well within its statutory and constitutional authority to detain Khalil, the statement said, adding an immigration judge has already vindicated this position. We expect a higher court to do the same. On Friday, his lawyers convinced Judge Farbiars of Federal District Court in Newark to release Mr. Khalil on bail, persuading him that there was reason to believe that the Trump administration was retaliating against Mr. Khalil for his role in campus demonstrations. The deportation case against Mr. Khalil continues, and the administration has appealed Judge Farbiars' ruling. If it is unsuccessful, Mr. Khalil will remain free as his immigration case proceeds. And
what the hell does he want to live here for, man?
That's what I don't understand. I don't understand why you wouldn't, now that you're free, just be like, all right, you know what? I'm out of here. I'm out of here.
Screw you guys. I'm going home.
That's right. That's right. But he is made of something different, folks. So you want to be inspired? Here's some inspiration. This just surfaced since we went on the air. This is from Olia Scootercaster of Freedom News. Here is Mahmoud Khalil back on the streets marching for Palestine after being released.
Wow.
Palestine will live forever! Palestine will live forever! From the river to the sea! From the river to the sea! Palestine will be free! Palestine will be free! From the sea to the river! From the sea to the river! Palestine will live forever! 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 Palestine will live forever!
So that is pretty kick-ass stuff right there. Congratulations to Mahmoud Khalil.
Man. And that is, you look at him, you look at the dignity, you look at the intelligence, and you compare him to the people who want him deported.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
he's worth 1 million of them. They should be deported. Yes. Get these people out of the country.
Yes.
We need more people like that.
That's right. Send them to South Africa. They have room
Send them
there.
to South Africa.
They have 59 spots there.
Go fight the genocide.
Yeah, go fight the genocide. Exactly. Yes. Yeah. I mean, that is pretty inspiring stuff. That is pretty kick-ass stuff. And so, congratulations to Mahmoud Khalil for at least winning his freedom while his case proceeds. And yeah, I mean, I've said this from day one, man. I mean, if I'm not welcome somewhere, I'm not staying. He's got a beautiful wife, a beautiful new baby boy. Go someplace nicer than this one and live your best life. And, stay involved in the struggle in a place that will be cool about it, as opposed to this fucking hellhole that we live in here.
Well, and what he said there, obviously this is a different situation. I'm sure it's even worse than the normal criminal jails. But there's the old response, a liberal is a conservative who hasn't been mugged. And the response is a conservative is a liberal who hasn't been arrested.
Right.
You go to jail. I've said this, man. If I were king, if I had absolute power, in order to graduate high school, you'd have to spend 3 days in your local jail.
Right.
Because you will understand the realities of this country in a way that you just won't if you've never seen what goes on when you're a prisoner in this country. Because what he's saying there, and again, I'm sure ICE detention, it's orders of magnitude higher. But if you just go through the system in America, you find out what the country really is. You find out how racist it is. You find out how classist it is. You find out what the country will do to you if it feels like it has you in a powerless position.
Yep.
It's not a kind country. And if you've never been on that side of it, you might not realize how bad it is.
Yeah, and that's what he said there. That's what he said in the interview when he got out. And so, yeah, this is one more in a string of setbacks for Donald Trump. The administration is being forced to take some L's here, both on the Kilmar Abrego Garcia front, obviously on the Doge front, and hopefully we can turn things around on the World War III front. But I think we are starting to see some vulnerabilities in the system, and that is encouraging. And of course, very, very encouraging to see him finally free. Rumeysa Öztürk was freed prior to this, so that is a sign of hope and a cause for at least optimism in that sense. All right. Joe B., thanks for the $10, was honored to meet Palestinian photographer Motez Aziza yesterday, a real hero. She's touring the USA, raising money for UNRWA, which is still doing work on the ground in Gaza. Other support if you can. Oh, thank you for that, Joe B. Appreciate that. Dwayne Vogel says, I hear Trump is now banging Hillary on the side. Yeah, that's good. Yes. A good one, Dwayne Vogel. Progressive lefty. When I showed up to work today, I started singing the Fish song, 1, 2, 3, what are we fighting for? They all laughed until I told them the USA bombed Iran, and one of my coworkers started crying. Oh, boy. Thank you for that. Folks, by the way, we are heading over to Rumble for the Q&A in just a moment. DoDissidents.com/Rumble. That is the link that takes you over to the post-show Q&A in just a moment. V. Netzelbaum says Russell is now saying other countries will be giving Iran nuclear... Russia, sorry, is now saying other countries will be giving Iran nuclear weapons.
Like I said, what now?
Yeah. Wonder what those other countries might be. What did bombing Iran solve exactly? Yeah, no, it's going to solve nothing. It's going to backfire. It's going to backfire. This is an extension of the Ukraine thing. The world has already started organizing against the United States, and they're not just going to let us run roughshod through that region. I don't believe so. Mark Dansky says, beautiful, Russell. You make us feel it and smell it and hear it, too. Thanks. There you go.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Nice compliment. Victor Shakopopoulos, remember the nuclear apocalypse in Threads started with a crisis in Iran. Siddhartha Vicious, Bolton is why I believe in abortion up to the 300th trimester. Thank you, Siddhartha Vicious. Mancow says, from Palestine, we love you. You inspire us. Well, thank you. Thank you for all the support. Free Palestine. Absolutely. Great to hear that, Mancow. Thank you very much. God bless. All right, that is our show, everybody. We appreciate you all very much for being here. Thanks to Jake in the booth. Thanks to the mods in the chats for keeping the peace. And the party does continue after a 5-minute intermission, which Russell curated for your viewing pleasure. So we will head on over.
I bet you can guess what the theme's going to be.
There you go. Exactly. So we will head over to Rumble right now for the post-show Q&A. Patrons, paid Substackers, and paid Locals members have call-in access, so you can form a call-in line right now, and we will take a 5-minute break and see you all on the other side. If you're not joining us for the Q&A, we will see you Tuesday evening. So it's going to be an evening show on Tuesday, not a 2 p.m. show, but a Tuesday evening show. We'll be live at 8 o'clock. Because we will be doing a regular show with segments, but the New York City polls close at 9 o'clock, so we will have live results from the mayoral primary on Tuesday night during the second half of the show. So you know how we break between segments for chats and stuff? We'll be taking chat breaks plus checking in on the results of the New York mayor's race on Tuesday night. So that show will start. I think we'll start it at 8 p.m. We might start it earlier if we have a lot of material to do. Like if we have a ton of stuff to do, we might start a little earlier so we get to a lot. Depends on how much there is. 7 or 8 p.m. That's all the more reason. Join our newsletter, DoDissidents.substack.com. Even if you can't join as a paid member, that will get you on our newsletter, and we will let you know when and where we will be live hours in advance. So this way you'll know the exact time for Tuesday night, since that is still a bit up in the air depending on the workload. But there will be no 2 p.m. show on Tuesday. That'll be an evening show, so we will cover the New York mayor's race results. Everybody else, head over to Rumble right now. We will see you in 5 minutes. If you're not joining us, we'll see you Tuesday nights. Until whenever we see you again, thank you very much for staying up with us this evening. Always a pleasure. And we will see you next time, whenever that may be. Until then, be safe and be well.
Courage!
Please clap.